Okay, it says we're live. So
Okay.
let people come in again. Hopefully YouTube will not immediately kick me off.
Let's see.
Okay, looks like everything's working now. So let people filter in and we'll do our poodle test. Hopefully YouTube will not just kick me off before we even get to that point. And we're only 20 seconds ahead of everyone according to OBS too. So actually that's probably the closest we've been to the YouTube time since we've done these. Poodles, everyone. All right. Yeah, I'm sorry about the first attempt at this. YouTube almost immediately just kicked me off the internet and was like, "Nah, I can't. Your connection's so bad. We're not even gonna keep this here to buffer." It just immediately kicked me off. So sorry to everyone for that, but it looks like it's fine now. Someone can't hear me apparently. Can you guys hear me, or
Yeah, yeah.
is it just
No, no, I can hear you fine.
someone in the chat says they can't hear me. So if you can't hear me, then the problems. Oh well, if they can't hear me, then they can't hear me saying this.
No. Uh, at least we can hear Neph, so I'm not sure if it's the problem is on your end.
Everyone in the chat, can you guys hear me? Seriously, can no one hear me?
Yeah, I can. EXO, you hear?
Well, I know you guys can hear me. I
What?
mean the people in the chat. Is this seriously
No.
like silent and no one can hear me?
Can you guys hear us?
Can you guys
Yeah,
hear
okay.
anyone? It
Yeah,
seems
yeah,
like no one
yeah.
can hear us.
No, they can. Yeah, they can hear you.
Someone.
The
Okay, it's just
trolling.
John Silver Swarren can't. Okay.
Okay,
Problem
I
seems to
think we're
be
good.
on your end, John. Uh, okay. So everyone except. Okay, now he can hear me. Okay, I just that really confused me because no one was responding to what I was saying. So I thought, oh crap, no one can actually hear us.
Let's see. There we go. And then I'll share this around.
All right. One more poodles before we begin. Actually, yeah, we are like almost a minute ahead of everyone, so I guess the
Oh well.
oh well. We were only 20 seconds, but now we're like a minute ahead of everyone. Okay. I'm seeing poodles. So, hello everyone. This is part 3. Um this
Of
is
the
this is
two-part
yeah.
stream.
This is probably the last one we'll do for a while unless we really don't get through anything this time. Part 1 was
Yeah.
pretty I thought was pretty good. We stayed on topic, and then yesterday we went off topic a lot.
Yeah.
So hopefully this one will at the very least be in between where we mostly stay on topic, but we kind of go on tangents. But yeah, we're gonna try and finish getting through our fleshing out of the Hylian Civil War as we set out to do on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I
Uh,
think we're actually like 2 minutes ahead of everyone. I'm only just now seeing poodles, unless my chat feed is behind.
I mean, it could be the chat feed.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, it's possible we're not. Yeah, we're only 21 seconds ahead according to OBS. So I think my chat feed is actually just far behind.
Because
So
I think my chat feed is actually ahead of yours for some reason.
it was yesterday.
Yeah, and it's not the first time, so I could just be the chat feed. I think it's fine.
Adrian Kerr says they love that Volga art. Yeah, I like that picture too. It kind of started as a joke, but I kind of like that picture. Maybe I'll make a 3 model render of that image at some point in the future whenever I get to.
Oh, Volga looks really cool in that image. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I'm not satisfied with the outfit, but I kind of like the his face. I like.
Yeah, I think the face is really good.
Yeah, so there his outfit design might change whenever I get to actually modeling him, but yeah.
I mean, he wouldn't wear. Yeah, he would probably have his own kind of his own colors. He probably wouldn't wear, you know, colors associated with his house.
Well, isn't the Rome colors blue?
Yeah, like light blue.
Yeah, so they're the only other house that has red in their coloration is the Gustav. So again, I'd considered making him a Gustav.
Yeah, I mean,
But yeah,
honestly,
he
it
wouldn't
makes
want to
sense for his
associate with his
character.
family.
Yeah, it makes sense for his character that he wouldn't wear his family's colors, which
Yeah.
I think is fine. So I guess for today, I think we should finish up a bit discussing Aquazoo. I guess if we can talk about other
We
relevant
barely
characters,
even
then
talked about him yesterday.
yeah.
That's what we're gonna start with. Maybe we'll finally
Uh,
talk about good old Akazu today.
yeah, and I guess we can talk about if there's any other characters that are relevant. I think actually for this stream, if I see questions that are directly referring to what we're talking about, I might bring it up just for clarification's sake. But if I see, I probably won't take. I probably won't read, unrelated questions for now.
Yeah.
I hope that's fine with you. So we can just stay on topic, get a dialogue going, and hopefully finish up what we wanted to discuss. So I guess a bit of character discussion. As I mentioned before we started, I really want to talk about how the arc could be structured in the Historia, even though it's not been set in stone or anything. I think it would be interesting to discuss.
Yeah. I think it'll probably be because in before I decided to redo all of this, it was basically you were going to switch between Tetra and then Hylia and Akazu. So you'd switch between the Hylians, the Wizrobe, and the Stalfos. I'll probably still do something like that, and then just add in Volga, who'll probably have a lot of Volvagian units.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure what my opinion on Styla and Tuft is. They might never be a perspective faction.
I,
They'll probably just be an alliance of minor factions that are antagonistic.
the thing is, even if you change your mind and wanted to have them, you could still use you could still use the Kingdom of Hyrule as a basis, right?
Yeah.
For the So I think that would be fine, and you could maybe give them a few units that are campaign exclusive. As RTSs tend to do, right? They usually
Yes.
build their campaign factions off the actual multiplayer skirmish factions, and they add a bit of spice to that. And I think that's could be done.
Or one thing I would have to really think about it is for if I did missions where you actually play as the Styla's forces or whatever, the missions would just be structured in a way that didn't involve the normal mechanics of the game, which is always something I actually hate in RTS games. I always
Mm-hmm.
hate in an RTS game when it just gives you like a few heroes and you don't get to make bases and units and stuff. That always bothers the hell out of me. Unless it's like a small and temporary thing.
Yeah.
Like I remember that's one thing that really pissed me off about StarCraft 2 is like half that game you're just like two guys wandering around. Like it's a fucking RTS. I want to make my armies, but because Styla's forces and all of her allies are minor factions, I don't know, I feel like that would be the best way to do mission structure around them is something that I don't know. I'd have to think on that actually.
I I agree with you, but I actually like those maps when they make sense. For example, Warcraft 3. I think Warcraft 3 did those missions better.
It does.
Uh,
That's because the heroes are like it's like an RPG almost.
yeah, and also because they did incorporate so that you might in stage 1 you start out with maybe 1 or 2 heroes and a few units, and then you can get more units as you progress through the mission, which I
Yeah.
think is a cool design idea. There's that mission in Frozen Throne when you go through the Dalaran
The
dungeon, right?
ruins.
And you
Yeah.
yeah, and you can save units to add them to your army. I think that was a really cool mission, and it was a dungeon mission as well, so it made sense. within the context of that.
Yeah. Well. Also, the thing about that is those missions were still exceptions.
Yeah.
There's like in StarCraft 2, like half the missions you're just like two guys and that's it. Then the third Dawn of War did the same thing too. Like half the final mission in Dawn of War 3, you're just one guy. And it's like, what the hell, dude? It's an RTS.
Yeah. I actually would prefer. I don't think you would have an entire perspective. Like you wouldn't have an entire portion of the arc be from stylist perspective. But I think if like one or two missions would be cool.
Maybe.
Uh, it adds some like even if they are it would still be antagonists because the majority of the missions you are against them, right? But it's still interesting to have a few missions that are the odd one out.
Yeah.
I
I'll
think.
have to think on it, but oh, maybe they're temporarily allied with the Wizrobe.
Mm, I think. But you would start as from Tetra's perspective, right? And then it would move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Do you imagine?
basically it begins with Tetra and Link returning from because basically the whole labyrinth thing happens and that's resolved, and then Tetra and Link naturally make their way back to Hyrule and they go through the forest, and that's when they get caught up in the whole Lizzlefoss Deku Scrub situation, and then they get through that,
Yeah.
and then the Civil War part basically begins with Tetra gets home and her father is on his deathbed basically. And then
Yeah.
he dies very shortly after that, and then Hylia's like, okay, the throne's mine. I actually think one of the first missions will be a bunch of peasants in Hyrule Castletown are pissed off, and you have to get through Hyrule Castletown with Tetra and a few of her guards with all these civilians like trying to harass you.
Oh,
I,
that would be really cool.
I think that'd be cool because they're all pissed at her, like, "Where the hell have you been? Your father is sick and everything's falling apart."
If possible, for that mission, you know what could be really cool because it kind of fits into the entire that narrative that she doesn't want to make her situation worse. That there was kind of like a punish mechanic if you kill too many civilians.
Yeah,
That would be really cool.
yeah. Like
you
if
have
you
some.
kill too many civilians, it's like it doesn't just say mission lost, but like you get like it just spawns hundreds of civilians and they just mob your armies. You're trying to get to
Yeah,
Hyrule Castle, and game over.
I I think that would be really cool because that would make sense, right? Because
Yeah.
she, even though she wants to get out, she doesn't obviously want to kill
Like
civilians.
killing every citizen, like there's like something where the negative reputation like keeps going up.
Yeah, exactly. I think that would be really cool for a mission like that.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure
Uh,
that's and that was planned even before like the Civil War idea.
hmm,
Um, like I've always had this idea that people were not happy with her for her pact with Hylia and running off to
yeah,
Labyrinth. So I'm pretty sure that'll be like the first mission. At some point, I believe the Wizrobe get involved in that mission, and I guess they probably like halfway through the mission, Lana probably like shows up, and then Wizrobe help you.
hmm.
And
I think that yeah.
obviously the Wizrobe are gonna turn on Tetra eventually.
But the thing is, because the thing that kind of makes it kind of difficult, the entire thing, is that I imagine that Hylia, it's not in Hylia's interest for Tetra to necessarily be killed, right? She just wants her
Yeah,
to
not
be
until
handled.
after her father's dead. Her father isn't dead at that point.
Mm. But
Um,
even then, wouldn't it would even if obviously Tetra doesn't just hand it over. I just would Hylia really want her dead anyways? Wouldn't
no,
she just
because she
rather
made the
just go?
pact. She has no
Yeah,
reason to be antagonistic to Tetra yet, because Tetra hasn't said "fuck you, the throne's mine" at
yeah.
this point.
No, but that's the thing. Like even after when she's does the fuck off, would she really want her dead or more You know what I mean? More like
Well,
I
because
guess make her
Tetra's
a hostage.
are you talking
Make her
about
a hostage.
are you talking about
Yeah,
after she
yeah,
denies Hylia the throne?
yeah.
I mean, I know why you're saying that because of her relation to Hylia, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I don't know at that point. I because
Difficult question.
it is difficult because I want to say Hylia is more inclined to duty than her personal feelings or whatever. So she'd be more interested in stabilizing the kingdom than reconnecting with a possible lost family member.
Yeah, I just think it
and
would.
and Tetra does get to a point where she's like, "Look, half the kingdom is still on my side. I'll destroy all of this to prevent you from taking the throne." I feel
Yeah,
like at that point, Hylia would be like, "I." Well, the thing is, Hylia actually wants to exile her. She doesn't want to kill her initially.
yeah, that's what I
Um,
mean. It would make, for me at least, it would make more sense. I'm not saying she
it's
would
it's
be
the
like
it's the
fun.
Wizrobe that go off to kill her in Nostrum, and
Yeah,
yeah, she probably
because
should have
Hylia seems.
specified that.
Yeah, because to me it seems like Hylia wouldn't have her killed, more like incapacitated, right? So that she's
Well, she
functionally,
exiles her.
yeah, functionally harmless. Uh, but yeah, as you said, duty.
Someone asked in the chat, why did Hylia and Zelda shake hands covered in blood? There's a lot of symbolism going on there.
It's a blood oath.
Yep, and they are connected by blood in a very literal sense too.
You don't mess with blood oaths.
Nope.
I think, obviously depending on the cultural context, but blood oaths tend to be the most sacred of oaths. Uh, blood oaths and weapon oaths, they tend to be extremely.
Blood
They're
and
held in
what?
high regard. Blood oaths and weapon
Oh
oaths,
yeah.
they are the ones that tend to be held in the highest regard. Uh, blood oaths are more personal though. That's the thing. Like uh, you wouldn't make a blood oath with your overlord, for example, right? That's when a weapon oath would be more useful. And the same thing, you wouldn't make a blood oath with your enemy. You should just do weapon oaths in that regard. Okay, so blood oaths are much more personal.
So yeah, Tetra in that situation must have really been desperate because she basically made a blood oath with a foreign deity that she doesn't know anything
Yes.
about. But again, look at the situation. Like, if she didn't do that, Coma probably would have just blown them all up.
Yeah. I mean, but she was desperate in that moment, right? So it makes sense.
Yeah. So King of
I mean,
Spoon.
how?
Oh, go on.
No, I was just thinking. So
I'll address that question when you're done.
yeah. So no, actually, before I go on a tangent, you can address that question. I think that's better.
Okay. See how King of Spoon 64 asks, how big is Hyrule's army? They just fought a war for survival against the Goma and then conquered Labrina before fighting a civil war. Where are the soldiers coming from? The Hylian army, first of all, does not actually participate in Labrina. It's Tetra organizes all the Ordanians into like a giant peasant army to topple over Labrina, and even then, she basically turns all of the races in Labrina against them. She riles up the Lionels and the Toke and the Gorons in Labrina and a bunch of the different groups in Labrina that have been conquered by the Librinians, and she turns them against them. The Hylians don't participate at all. And that's probably why she doesn't actually, tell her father about what's going on, and then she just riles up the Ordanians because she probably knows that the Hylians can't really afford to wage a war against Labrina, especially
Mm-hmm.
after she's seen what Labrina did to Ordana. Um, as far as the actual size of the Hylian army, I'd say at its peak, maybe 500,000 soldiers. Maybe it's not too big. I
That's pretty
mean,
big.
that is pretty big, but I mean, yeah, the largest armies during the Crusade were about 100,000, and even those were probably a little bit exaggerated.
Yeah.
But I also keep in mind I said at the peak of Hylian power, which is not during the time of Laverna. The peak of Hylian
Given
power was probably during Ganon's invasion.
given given the size and numbers, I would actually give a rough estimate that at their peak they would be close to 100,000. Just the Kingdom of Hyrule. That's without employing Ordana or Lineru.
Yeah,
And that's
I'm tempted to
that
say, I'm tempted to say 500,000 during the Golden Age though, just because I don't know.
because you like big armies.
Yeah, well, also because they weren't constantly at war during that period of time, so their population probably would boom more than it would on Earth during. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, maybe there could have been plagues. I don't know, but because people do reproduce a lot, like, and if people aren't dying left and right in wars, then there's gonna be a boom in population. But I mean, during the Gerudo Wars, I would definitely say there's nowhere near 500,000 Hylian soldiers on standby. There's probably not even 1,000,000 Hylians in the world during the Gerudo Wars. A lot of them died to the Moblins during Ganon's first invasion, and I think there's only 100 years between that and the Gerudo Wars. They definitely didn't have
Yeah.
enough time to repopulate. And then
I would say
when the
even
Fallen Sage happens, I would actually say the Hylian army is pretty small. I mean,
I would
Kazak
say
only has like 100 guys when he goes after Aquazoo.
yeah. I would say actually that even at the time of Ganon that they weren't even at their peak because there was still like a full century of decline prior to his invasion.
Yeah, I,
So
I'll
I would
I'll
I
be
would say
in.
the prime of the Hyrulean army or Hylian army would probably be somewhere in the middle of the Great Golden Age. But even then, they wouldn't really have a standing army that much because it wouldn't have been needed.
Like they could have exaggerated about their numbers in the history books, just like they
Probably
did
lied.
in Europe.
Probably lied.
Yeah, but I guess my answer will be ambiguous then. I'll say at the peak of Hylian power, it was somewhere between 100,000 to 500,000,
Yeah.
somewhere in between there. And if we mirror European history, they probably exaggerated their numbers to scare their enemies. Because
Yeah.
if I remember right, the largest recorded battle during the Middle Ages was it was during the Third Crusade with Richard the Lionheart, and his soldiers numbered, I believe, just under 100,000.
Yeah.
And I did some research on that, and a lot of people agree the numbers were probably exaggerated for the sake of making his supporters seem like he was doing better than he was.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, the Hylians. I don't know. Part of me is like, well, they had a golden age that didn't have tons of warfare. There was no serious plague, so they probably would have a larger population. But at the same time, I'm like,
I One
they
thing to keep
probably
in mind though.
lie.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind though, when speaking of armies, is that the vast majority of the Hylian army would still be conscripted peasants, right? Like the
Yeah,
Knights of Hyrule is a much smaller group of the army. How many Knights of Hyrule would you say they have?
there's not a lot of. I mean, even in terms of gameplay, the knights are supposed to be like really elite units.
Yeah,
Um, and also I knights are kind of weird because a lot of media portrays knights as conscripted guys in an army, but knights are basically glorified mercenaries.
yeah, and
A
honestly,
knight is basically a rich guy who's able to afford good armor and weapons, and if he really likes a lord, he'll pledge his services to a lord for like food and money. They're not like guys with uniforms that are conscripted into an army. They're not like levies. But a lot of media portrays knights as like levies.
and honestly, anointed knights did not participate that much in direct combat. So
Knights were more
yeah,
like police officers.
They were
Well, I mean,
assholes.
I guess it depends on the time and the place, but knights were like knights are weird. But
It's
in
like in I because a landed knight is like you say they pledge their service, but even then a landed knight rarely would participate in direct combat because they're valuable.
yeah, because they're they
Like
had to use them in duels and tournaments.
yeah, like even then, obviously there are examples, and there are plenty of there are in exceptional cases there were knights were deployed in relatively large numbers, but it's just that is not the norm. Which is why a lot of warfare, medieval warfare, was a lot of you know it was pretty messy because you have a bunch of people that have no idea what they're doing.
The First Crusade. Well, even the First Crusade, the intent of the Pope was to raise an army of knights to send to send to freaking to send to the Byzantines, but he accidentally raised an army of peasants.
Yep. I mean, so yeah, the Knights of Hyrule would be pretty. Yeah, not there's not a lot of them. That's what I always had imagined as well.
Tetra sends them to their death
Oh no.
because they're not valuable to Tetra. But except, well, I don't know.
Bad
Link,
optics.
Link, yeah, bad optics. I was gonna say Link. Actually, his whole gimmick is knights. So, I mean, I guess he himself is technically a knight.
Ish.
He's a knight-ish. I mean, even in the context of the Wizrobe, his role is pretty mercenary. He loosely does what the Wizrobes want. He's not like a regimented soldier like the rest of the Hylians under the Wizrobe, but
Was he probably anointed though by the Visrobe? Was it
yes,
a
yes,
proper
he was.
anointment?
He was actually
Yeah,
properly knighted by Hylia by the Wizrobe.
that's the problem though. Like even though he's a knight of the order, it's kind of an interesting question if the Hylian, the
No,
knights
the
of Hyrule.
Hylians probably wouldn't
Yeah,
recognize that at all. But at the time, like the Wizrobe only cared about the Wizrobe, and Link probably only cared about what they thought too. Like even when he returns to his father and he says he was knighted by the Wizrobe, his father's like, "What? That doesn't mean anything. Who the fuck cares about birds?" But I don't know. He's kind of
honestly, that would be a good point for. That would be actually be a good like point to have him knighted by someone in power in Hyrule. If Tetra, as you said, if
well.
Tetra
You
probably knights
recommended
him.
Tetra doing that, or I think you
Yeah,
recommended Kazak doing that.
yeah, because if you do that right after Labyrinth, because it would make sense for his arc, right?
Yeah.
Due to the
The
lessons he
last
learned.
thing Daddy Daphne's does before he dies, he knights Link.
That sounds like a sad scene. I don't like.
There's a lot of sad scenes in Hyrule Conquest. I'd say like 50% of the scenes are kind of sad. So far, we've stayed on topic.
But yeah, yeah, we have, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
someone in the comments was mentioning that. Like, yeah, so far we managed to go a half hour staying on topic.
that's pretty good. Let's keep it that way for
Yeah,
now.
we'll try.
But yeah, if we, I'm not gonna go too deep into that. But speaking of Link getting knighted, if he was knighted by you know Daphnis before he dies, and in terms of what led up to his that moment, in terms of what happened in Labyrinth, right, and also what we talked about yesterday off stream, which I'm not going to go into, right. That is
Right.
a very nice symbol when he passes on with the torch, right.
I'm trying to remember what we talked about off stream yesterday. We talked about a few things. What in
uh,
particular?
I'll just post it in
Oh
the.
yeah, just
You'll see
post it
what I
in
mean.
the Discord. Yeah, because I'm. Oh yes, of course. Yeah, and then he
Yeah.
knights
Yes.
him. Right.
Yeah. And then you get a very nice, kind of like a symbolic red thread that goes through his entire arc.
The mask keeps on going.
Yeah. No, I think actually that's something that I probably would. I don't know if you've given it much thought, but Knighthood of in Hyrule is something that I'm interested in because it is a big thing in Nintendo canon, and especially in the older titles we keep having
The
the
Knights
the
of
Knights of
Hyrule. Yeah.
yeah, they keep being referenced. So that's always an aspect of Zelda lore, and also in a Hyrule Conquest I would be interested to flesh out, because the institution of knighthood is interesting,
I'm actually
and especially
I'm pretty certain because I'm redoing the Highlands right now. I'm pretty certain I'm gonna scrap the idea where they like abandon their coat of arms. I'm gonna make it so all the Hylian knights they display all their heraldry from their houses.
yeah, I think that would even make
When
sense.
I yeah
I think you wouldn't need a Highlands to fully. I think they should have their family heraldry in combination with the royal families.
yeah I mean the symbol that encompasses all of Hyrule is just the Triforce, and the Triforce is pretty much on everything. Even civilians have Triforce decorations on their stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's actually a few kind of on topic questions I'm noticing. This one kind of isn't, but I would like to address it. Someone's asking about a Din Nerun Furore. Do you mean the oracles or the goddesses themselves? Because I had an idea. Well, I had plans for the oracles, but I actually scrapped those not long ago too. I think I'm actually going to do something a little bit different with the oracles. Kind of in the vein of what we talked about with the sages.
Yeah.
Their titles basically, not they're people that embody a certain title. As far as the three goddesses themselves, I'm not sure if I'm can really
No.
articulate that properly. um,
Uh.
their presence in the lore.
Yeah. I mean, you see them everywhere, really, in Hylian art, and so yeah, that's where they are,
Yeah.
in the minds of everyone.
The principles, the
Yeah,
pillars.
exactly.
um, yeah, I
Now
actually
go.
don't even know if I talked about it with you, but I did have a different. I wanted because actually when I was writing I was fleshing out some of the dialogue in the Labyrinth arc like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was doing parts with Nehru. I'm like, you know what? I don't like this. I don't like the what my idea what the oracles are. I'm gonna redo them. I mean,
Okay.
maybe I'll stick with the original plan, but um, yeah, I just wanted to
Without going into it, just to quick, would they still be the columns, like
sort
guiding
of
columns?
yes, but the thing I was gonna change is the particulars that embody those columns are not the same ones from
Ah,
aeons
I
ago.
see.
It's a
Yeah.
title, basically.
Oh yeah, yeah. So it's sort of like, yeah, it's sort of like sagehood.
Yes, it's a lot more like Sagehood. So because I was writing the dialogue and I'm like, you know what? If this Nehru has the knowledge of potentially thousands of years, she would not sound like this.
Yeah. I think honestly, writing immortality is tricky,
It
right?
really is. It hurts. I'll
I
never
think
be
one.
satisfied with Demoko and Solcaris. They
I think
sound
one of
so
the
petty.
I think one of our the reasons is because immortality is so far beyond our horizon, right? So it's very difficult for us to interpret, like even trying to you know understand what that really is, how our psyche would be, right? So I can understand writing down. I mean, I think I think Hylia is pretty okay in that regard.
She's been
But
in
it's
stasis basically.
yeah. So she kind of
She's kind
escaped
of been
most of the.
she's been locked away and she's barely changed. Um,
So
but
even then, I don't think the curse of immortality has gotten to her truly yet. If you know what I mean,
yeah,
because it would take longer, and she would have to be active for it to kind of get a foothold in her psyche.
yeah. So far to this day, I feel like the person who's done immortal characters the best is actually Tolkien, and all of his immortal characters are very sad or they're psychotic and destructive.
I think I think Tolkien, because I think his immortal characters really show how distant they become from everything, because they don't perceive time like mortals do at all.
Yeah, all the
So they become
elves in Lord of the Rings, they're like all depressed and sad.
very detached from everything.
Yeah,
And another
it's
problem
like they want
problem
to die.
yeah, another problem with immortality is that you wouldn't be an active force ever, probably.
Because you know that everything you do kind of decays and the status quo
Yeah,
gets reset eventually.
and that's why immortality, according to Tolkien, is a gift because it enables action
Yeah.
because you know that you have limited time.
And the thing is, that is what I was doing with Nehru, which is why she's just fucked off to a mountain. And the same thing with the other two. They basically just gone into the wilderness because nothing changes, and they've kind of all gone insane. But I might change that.
Yeah,
I haven't decided yet, and I guess we kind of went on a tangent, but
yeah, yeah.
not completely. I
I
wanted
mean,
to
we can.
answer that question.
No, but I think we should get back to that at some other time because it's an interesting discussion. If you
Yeah.
don't mind that, another time would be nice for that.
Someone asks, does Link die in battle, age, or other? At the moment, it sounds like he dies on a hunt. It seems like that's the direction that we're going in. He'll probably die on a hunt.
Which link are we talking about?
Which
I'm
Link?
joking.
The particular Link in Hyrule Conquest.
uh, let's see.
Yeah, let me see if
Trying
there's
to.
any more related questions. Someone's asking if the new perspective of the oracles is that a way to bring that journalist back. I'm surprised people know who that Liburnian journalist is. Actually, I might reinsert her regardless of whatever I do with the oracles. If I can, because my problem with the Labyrinth arc right now is that it feels incredibly bloated. There's like tons and tons of characters, and I feel like I need to cut stuff out. So
Yeah.
I'm really hesitant to add another, especially a passive character that kind of is basically they're an observer. Basically, they don't really directly affect. The thing is, they do affect the future through what they put down,
Yeah.
in terms of history, but in terms of the actual story of Labyrinth, they're very passive characters. I'm kind of hesitant to put that character in, honestly. Even though I really want to, I feel like that character's better than other ones that that are getting priority. But I won't go into that. Someone asked, since the Yiga replaced Aghanim's faction, what's going to happen to Aghanim's faction? I actually haven't. I still haven't decided if I'm completely demoting Aghanim's faction, but if I do, he'll become a minor faction, or he'll be a minor faction in the game. Maybe he'll even be promoted to a crisis faction. I don't know.
That's what I wanted.
But at the moment, Aghanim is still ambiguously playable. That's still not something I've brought the hammer down on. But I am leaning towards demoting Aghanim and making the Yiga one of the main factions in the main game.
Yeah.
So, who's the father of Hylia's children? That's a question I know you're. Do we want to spoil that?
No.
Okay, I mean this is a spoiler stream, so I don't mind it, but I don't think we'll spoil the father of Hylia's children at the
The thing
moment.
is, if you want to find out, you can find out. I'm just not gonna like it's there somewhere. But I think it's more honestly, if you don't want it to be, it's a very. I guess I should say it's a very nice part of her story, and if you don't like spoilers, I wouldn't recommend spoiling it for yourself because I think I think it would probably be more impactful.
I think it's nice for the
Ultimate,
father too,
yeah,
for his
it's a very
character.
it's a very nice story arc. So I unless you want it spoiled, then I would just hold it off. But if you're if you really want to know, you can find out. Actually, there's a lot of spoilers on the wiki, hidden in a lot of places. So if you are actually active reading on the wiki, you probably picked up a lot of stuff there.
I'm not
Because
even active reading on the
no,
wiki.
but it's more like stuff that that's been talked about in Discord might get added on there. So there's a lot of before I really started editing it and looking through it, I did notice that there were a few spoilers there, and I actually kind of like that. It's kind of like a treat, right? That
Yeah.
you invest time reading about the universe, and you might find some cool stuff there. And I actually kind of like that. But I don't think me just telling we telling you the spoiler would be as fun as figuring it out on your own.
Yeah.
That's my take, at least.
Yeah, someone in the chat actually just asked where is all this lore. Basically what Deox just said. Most of it's on the Hyrule Conquest wiki, which I'll put in the chat. Let me go get a link to it. Hyrule Conquest wiki. Let me see. Where is it? Here it is. Okay. Actually, what the hell just happened? Oh, there we go. Okay, there's a link to the Hyrule Conquest wiki in the chat. Actually, it looks like they just redesigned it for.
Oh, yeah, I think Codeman fixed the
Oh,
factions.
nah, I liked the old thing I had for the factions better. Sorry, Codeman.
I think it's because you didn't make new ones, so
I
you
don't.
went
Oh,
ahead.
well, I didn't want to make new ones because with 50 images on there, it's just gonna become like really cluttered.
Probably, yeah.
I was
You
just
don't
keeping it to like the main six.
you don't like the new images? I think they look way better than
Well, I
the
like the
previous.
images, but it's gonna when all 50 factions are there with 50 images, it's just gonna be super cluttered. It's gonna look like a giant. It's gonna just look like a mess when there's that many factions.
Nah, I don't share your opinion on this one.
Mm.
Well, I mean, it's your project if
And
you
they're
wanna
also
make
the
other
icons
ones.
are even bigger than the old ones too. Uh,
He took them from your newer designs, which you're using in the faction selection screen. So
yeah, I mean that I don't know. I'll worry about that after the live stream. um, the reason I wasn't making more, and I thought I said this on the Discord, is because I don't want it to be cluttered with 50 plus images.
I don't think it's necessarily clutter, but I do think maybe having it to its own faction page would be better,
Maybe.
right? Because then you have like a selection of it on a faction
Yeah,
page.
maybe that's a better compromise, like a separate page that has all of these factions and their images, and then the front page it just yeah. But we're going way off topic
Yeah,
already. There's a link to the wiki, guys. Lots of lore on it. Let's see. Let's see. Undying Nephilim. What do you think of the name of my book, Monsters of the Unknown? Is the Monsters of the Unknown is that related to Hyrule Conquest, or is that just like like a book you're making and I'm not sure what the context of that question is. I mean, monsters are connected to the unknown, so I'd say the title's appropriate, even if it's not related to Hyrule Conquest. Monsters are all about things that aren't in categories. That's what a monster is. So I would say the title's appropriate. Hopefully that answers that question.
I'm just gonna answer a question quick in regards to the wiki where the spoilers come from. They come from Neph because he just yeah spoils.
I just will randomly talk about spoilers on the Discord, and people will take them and put them on the wiki before they're even finalized.
Pretty much.
See, wow, there's actually a lot of questions today compared to the other 2 days. So does the
Yeah.
Great King of Zelda 2 have any role in Hyrule Conquest? Who is he on your in your genealogy chart, if anyone, Deox?
Oh, the Great King.
Who is he on the?
He's not on there yet because
Oh,
he's
okay.
further back.
Okay.
But the thing is because Zelda doesn't have enough characters, so when creating like new characters to kind of fill in the void, you kind of have to pull a bit from different directions, right? Because there's simply not enough characters in Zelda. Like, it's just not enough people.
John Savannah Swarren asked like 4 times, Neff, I have reposted a fan made trailer Hyrule Conquest on my YouTube channel. Can you rate it? I'll go check it out when the stream's done, yeah. Free advertisement for Hyrule Conquest. So I'll probably like it on the basis that it's free advertisement, but I'll check it out when the stream's done. Okay, is there an example of a virgin birth in Hyrule Conquest? Also, do you believe virgin birth is real? Well, first of all, what does it mean? What do you mean by real? But to quote Peterson there, but I don't think there's. I mean, I guess the closest thing there is Hylia, but not exactly. She's not really a virgin birth. So there's that concept isn't quite in Hyrule Conquest. As far as like the symbolism of that, I'm gonna say yes. I believe that's a real concept, but it probably not in the way you mean by real.
Yeah.
The symbolism of virgin birth is it's basically it's literally the basis of reality, like something coming from nothing, or at least that's what it seems like from the human perspective. But that will send me into a huge tangent, so I'm not gonna go into it. Maybe for another stream when we do symbolism stuff.
Yeah, I saw a question from Angel Pulse. Yes, I kinda Rogim is one of the kings that I kinda put up there as this, but he's not. I would. That's the again. I'm pulling from different places, right? But I would say that is yes. Okay, yes, done. I'm just gonna say yes.
Okay, I guess I'll hold off on questions for a bit then.
Yeah.
Where did we leave off? I remember Tetra going into exile.
Yeah.
Or just Hylia sending her into exile, or killing her.
So
I think that's the last place we're at.
When did you imagine that the Romes come in? Because it's kind of difficult for them to go in. You know, they're this bunch of dislocated royals
As soon as
with a bunch of Arcadians, but like
as soon as word of Daddy Daphne's death reaches them, that's when they're like, okay, now's a good opportunity to put this all into motion. They probably could have done it earlier, but they thought Kazak. Well, also Kazak. No, he's not. No, no, they probably wouldn't do it until Aquazoo ousts Tetra as a bastard.
Yeah. The thing is, regardless of her bastardy, they still have the better claim according to the law.
Then maybe they would do it as soon as Kazak dies, not after Aquazoo ousts her as a bastard.
Yeah, because the bastardy kind of just enforces their claim, but it's not the reason for it.
Well, yeah. Also another reason why it probably should be before that is because Volga's initially aligned with Tetra against his brother.
Yeah, because Tetra's bastardy is actually completely unrelated to their claim. It kind of just enhances it, but it's unrelated, really. Like, they still have a stronger legal claim due to, the succession mess that happened in Nyland's time. So
Aquazoo would basically be the last contender to become involved, which symbolically makes sense since he's connected to death. After the fragmentation starts, that's when you invite death in. So that's kind of a nice little... Yeah, because initially I wanted Aquazoo to be the first contender after the fallout with Hylia and Tetra, as it was before I decided to do a giant civil war. It was going to be... And he wasn't even fighting for the throne at that point. He was just taking advantage of the situation. But I think, based on what we just said, Aquazoo will be the last one to show up. He'll be all you guys, I got some information that'll ruin everything for all of you.
I think for clarification that, because I saw someone talking about it in the chat, is that regarding, the great houses and the royal family. So the Daltons in their original incarnation is not around anymore. not in as they were. The Romes are still around, but that's like the last of their branch. The Nohansens used to be 2 branches, but now it's only the Zelda dynasty left. And the Harkinians is still a branch that is off, that split off a while back. So they're not around in the same capacity as they used to be. I would say this at the moment it's mostly the Romes and the Nohansens that are somewhat, somewhat in a similar position that like in the past.
I would still say the Romes are pretty small too.
They're still, it's one branch, so
Yeah.
that is pretty small. But it's not like the Daltons where it's kind of completely chaotic.
Well, yeah, because the Daltons, they
they're yeah.
they went into the water.
Yeah, exactly. So the Daltons are still around, but just not in the same way that they used to be. And the Harkinians are kind of like I wouldn't even say they're still around because they're not that relevant. They kind of drifted away.
Their booze is still around.
Yeah, their booze is still around. Like I would say there are Harkinians left, but now their claim from the throne it's so far removed that they're just normal nobility at this point, right? They're just wealthy.
They're the smartest of the families. They don't care for all the power games anymore.
Yeah, like the last Harkinian king. Let me
bring up the genealogy.
Yeah, I can actually get a date. Let's see. Okay. Harkinian. Okay, so let's see. That's the Dwalas. Okay, so the last Harkinian was around 200, 300 VG. That's pretty far.
Yeah, that's almost 300 years before Ganon. Yeah, this is during the Golden Age.
Yeah, so this is even before the Century of Decline. So they've drifted away from the royal family, and most of the time after that, it was mostly the Romes and the Nohansens trying to hold on to the throne. So, and obviously the Romes, probably because they're cursed.
Yeah.
All their branches died off, and then you had the main branch that married into the Nohansen line, and they split again, and now you only really have 2 main branches, which is the Romes, which is a small one. And technically I would argue that the Nohansens, at least the Zelda dynasty, is still a very tiny branch because they never had children. They only had one daughter.
Except for all of them only had one daughter.
Yeah,
the same thing even happens when Link brings his genes into the pool. They only have one daughter.
Yeah. So the Zelda dynasty is it's still a very minor branch. It's not like it used to be in the Golden Age when there were multiple branches of various great houses.
The Zelda dynasty just has a lot of history around them, so they're remembered more.
So, but yeah, I would say they're all still around-ish at the moment. Obviously, the Romes, it doesn't end too well for them. But they do live on because, they still mingled with the other families, right? It's just their name dies.
I'd probably say the Harkinian name probably still exists in Hyrule.
Yeah. That's what I say.
I'm even tempted to reference the Valiant comic, and one of the Harkinians made their way to Calatia.
Yeah, it's possible that they kind of, again, they're the ones that are still around, but because they split off from the royal family, quite a while ago, they aren't as involved in the royal politics, right? Because it's been 7-8 generations, so more than that actually. It's been around 13. So their claim on the throne is irrelevant.
Yeah,
because they've so far removed that now.
Someone's asking if the Gerudo is a Zelda dynasty. It's funny. There's actually a connection between the Harkinians and the Gerudo. Spoilers.
And so I guess in that way they actually.
I guess that means the Harkinians are connected to Ordanians too.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Harkinian blood, it's around. I guess by that logic that there's Dalton blood. There's plenty of Dalton blood floating around.
Oh yeah.
It's just not the name.
It's just, it's like there's plenty of Dalton blood in Lanayru. It's just that again they're around, just not in the same way that they used to be.
Darnock the Mage. asks, I actually answered, I mentioned this in my stream the other day, but he's asking what my opinion on the Valiant comics are. They are, for the most part, fantastic. I unironically want to say some of the Zelda Valiant comics are better than anything Nintendo's ever done with Zelda.
They're really good.
They're really unironically my favorite version of Princess Zelda probably. Princess Zelda's a fucking badass in those comics. I was saying the other day on this stream, her body count in those comics, the number of enemies she sets on fire and slaughters is higher than a Game of Thrones character. There's a scene in the Valiant comics where Princess Zelda is just lighting people on fire with fire arrows, and then she riles up a giant mob of peasants. She's like, I'm gonna go slay Ganon, he's gonna pay for everything he's done, and she leads a mob of civilians to go kill Ganon. It's pretty great. I love the Valiant comics. I highly recommend to everyone in the chat to check them out. It's easy to find PDFs of them online. Sadly, getting an actual issue, you'll have to fork out hundreds of dollars. I looked for into buying the actual issues just to have them. I'm not even a collector. I thought they were so good I wanted to own them, but they're like hundreds of dollars. They're so expensive on eBay.
Old comics. There was actually an interesting question I just want to clarify. We've talked about it before. No, the Zelda dynasty is not inherently connected to the Gerudo. The reason they only there's a reason why they only have daughters, but it's not connected to the Gerudo. It's just.
Oh, I guess I misunderstood his question.
Yeah. It's they have daughters because of scheming, and you're right. That's why they only have daughters. If you see, Nylon had a brother, right? So clearly they're not magically incapable of having sons. It's just, people are scheming. Not the thing is, Nylon's father and mother, they probably didn't have a good marriage at all. So probably why they didn't have a lot of kids, which is bad. They should have had more. But yeah, they're not Gerudo.
I guess this is kind of a two-part question. I was asked if I'm going to post sketches of the first stages on DeviantArt, and then Captain Heck mentioned I don't think I've made any new Zelda studies in over a decade. I actually do have hundreds of... I posted some of them on DeviantArt like a week ago, because actually Deox convinced me to post them, but I do have like hundreds of concept sketches. Most of them are just uncolored, but I have sketches of things that I just don't post because I consider them like incomplete. But I don't know, I might post more on DeviantArt. I'm considering posting a bunch of Tweely ones I have.
Do it.
I really want to work on Tweely stuff. Every time I look at all the Tweely images, I'm like, can I just skip all the other stuff and do the Tweely? I don't know. I might post a bunch of Tweely stuff on my DeviantArt sometime in the next week or so. So yeah, I do still do Zelda sketches and stuff. I
mean, you did do the Hylia study.
Yeah, I posted that one.
And the Guardian study. They were pretty good.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And they're relatively recent, I'd say. So
I think the Hylia one's like 2 years old, and the Guardian one's like 3 years old.
Don't say that. Time passes.
Yeah.
But yeah, please post more. People, I've seen it. People like it. I like it. So, and concept art is always interesting to see.
Yeah, I just don't want to flood my DeviantArt. I feel like I should organize them into themes, like, Tweely's a no-brainer. Put all the Tweely stuff together.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Again, I'm always working on stuff, and it takes time to go through a bunch of sketches and organize them into a big sheet. But, I don't know. I'll think about posting the Tweely one, because that one's easier to do. But anyway.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, if there's no relevant questions to the topic, maybe we should go back on topic.
Yeah, we should. So, back to Aquazoo. I think I agree that he should come in last.
Yeah.
I really think that's the best bet, and I do think that the Stylus, the Romes, should come in earlier because it would make sense because their claim is irrelevant to Tetra's bastardy.
I've noticed a theme with Aquazoo is basically he's the one, he ousts everyone of their claim.
Because it's sleazy.
Yeah. So he accuses Zelda of being a bastard, and he's the one that exposes Styla for her lineage too. So what the hell could he expose of Hylia to make her claim even worse? He'd have some dirt on Hylia, probably.
The thing is, in Hylia's case, like in terms of her place in the royal lineage, she's already passed on her claim.
Yeah.
She's essentially a queen trying to retake a position she already passed on.
Well, that's why she made a pact with Tetra.
Yeah. Because she's not an heir. So she doesn't really have a claim besides the Covenant.
Yep. And I guess if Tetra's been made illegitimate, then the Covenant probably means nothing to a lot of the people.
Exactly, right?
I mean, most of the people didn't even like the Covenant to begin with before she was made declared a bastard.
The thing is, in terms of the law, the throne is not even Tetra's to give away. That's not her choice to make.
Poor Hylia. Like, everything blew up in her face.
I was about to say, it's ironic because if she'd paid more attention, which she should, she would have known that. But she didn't.
Yep.
So, that's funny, in a way.
Yeah.
She picked the wrong damn heir to make a pact with.
Yep.
So, I don't think... I don't think Aquazoo needs any dirt on Hylia because
just two birds with one stone then.
Yeah, because Tetra's technicality affects her as well.
I like Aquazoo a little more now.
I like him because he's a schemer. I like schemers. I do like schemers.
Yeah.
It's also a shame though because this arc would really show that if he'd gone a different path, he would be a really shrewd politician. So it's actually kind of sad that this is where he ends up in like spooky boy when he could become this really capable like leader. And this is what he uses his talents on. Is like being a spooky boy.
I might even because at some point he is going to temporarily be the king after he ousts Styla. He's actually crowned it temporarily, and I might even go as far as to show like people are actually satisfied with him.
I mean, he would be probably very good at hiding his true nature as well, right? And that's kind of ties in with the symbolism with his mask. He's very good at hiding his true nature.
Yeah. I mean, no one in Hyrule other than the soldiers that were with Daphne's, which most of them were freaking burned to death by Wizrobes. No one knew what the hell he was up to, and then Daphne's dies, and Aquazoo could easily just be like, "Look, he lied to you about, or he had this bastard child. He ruined this marriage. All Daphne's was doing was trying to oust me and shame my name. Like none of what he said about this whole zombie thing is true.
Yeah,
he's lied to all of you. Now put me on the throne." He does have a little bit of a. He would have a little bit. There would be people that would believe him.
Oh yeah, I mean it's honestly all the circumstances around his disappearance are very sketchy, right? It sounds very sketchy, and not from his because of him, but because of Kazag. He goes there. Suddenly his best friend is missing, and then they find out about Tetra's heritage.
Yeah, so
it's all very sketchy.
just based on the situation, the people already are distrustful of Tetra, and by extension her father. Once Akazu's like, yeah, look, this marriage annulment was not legal, and then Daphne's knew that, and he wanted to ruin my name and make sure that I couldn't undo everything. So he drug my name through the mud and just disfigured my face and yada 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 yada. So I actually I feel like people would be inclined to believe him based on the situation.
Yeah, I think so, but I think it's important that I've seen some people when you mentioned that Tetra's bastardy, it's still a technicality. I think that's important to clarify
Yeah.
because she's functionally the princess. Her father was functionally the king. It's very technical, and honestly, that people would just use that technicality as an excuse to turn
Yeah.
against her, as we talked about.
Me personally, I don't think she is a bastard. I think she is a legal extension of the lineage because I personally in that if I was in that situation, I'd be like, no, this annulment between Aquazoo and her mother was legal.
Yeah,
Um, well, no, I am kind of projecting my modernity into the situation because in that culture, you have to consummate in order for the marriage to be legal. So, no, if I was in Hyrule, I might be like, yeah, she technically, by the letter of the law, is a bastard because that marriage was wrongfully annulled.
yeah.
um,
And even then, the thing with consummation is that who knows, right? Let's be
yeah,
honest.
yeah, who knows? Fair
We really
enough.
don't know.
We really don't know.
Like, if both, if one, if both parties state the other who's really right, like, is the guy that had to witness the consummation still around?
No, the situation is ambiguous, and that is the nature of necromancy.
Yeah.
You're going into the past, you're digging up something ambiguous, and you're
I,
trying to project something into it.
I think, again, this would depend on the laws of Hyrule, but based on what we discussed, I would actually say that the annulment probably wasn't legitimate as a in a medieval context.
Yeah, well, to me, this whole thing is a letter of the law versus spirit of the law situation.
Yeah,
That to me is the whole thing. Like, if you're a letter of the law person, if that is all that matters, then Tetra is a
that's why.
bastard. If you're a
But that
spirit
makes
of the
sense.
law kind of person, then you probably watch a lot of Age of Empires 2 videos.
But this makes sense why Akasu would oust Styla, because he knows that her, just existing makes his own claim irrelevant, right?
Wait, say
Because
that
he
again?
doesn't. Yeah, like that's why he would have a motive to, reveal Styla's, heritage, because her very existence kind of completely makes his claim illegitimate.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if he was married to the daughter of an usurper, right? Then it doesn't matter according to the law. That's why he needs to kind of make people turn on her, because he's using the law, but the law is actually against him.
But it's only Styla that has the Ordanian blood, not Agatha.
Yeah, but she's dead. So.
Well, yeah, she is dead. Fair enough. Someone asks, I guess this is kind of off topic, but what's your stance on people shipping Lear with Link? I mean, people can ship whoever they want in their fan stuff. I think it's a valid ship. I mean, it's a distinct possibility Lear and Link will marry after poor Tetra hits the gets killed. um, Lear's like a prime candidate for that, so I'm not opposed to if people want to do that. I'm not opposed to it at all. And then same person asked, "What owl species is Demoko?" I would not categorize Demoko as a species at all. I think that's the wrong way of looking at a first sage or a sage, and yeah. Um, let's see. Thought I saw some question about Oh, that's not a question. That's someone addressing someone else. I thought I saw something relevant to what we're talking about, but it was someone actually addressing someone else. See, is necromancy illegal in Hyrule? I guess overt necromancy would be considered. I don't know if they actually have like written laws against it.
I would say socially taboo. that I wouldn't
Yeah.
say there's a law like says no, you can't practice necromancy. I would just say in that particular culture that would be frowned upon.
Yeah. I mean, historically, necromancy has always been frowned upon. That's because necromancy is fucking dangerous. It's
Yeah.
very dangerous to practice it, and people still do practice it today with archaeology.
It's not a. It's only also because you are desecrating the sanctity of something.
Yeah.
Which is a big no-no in a lot of cultures.
Yeah.
Big no-no.
I mean, in the Gerudo Wars, Kazak clearly had disdain for necromancy. And Aquazoo was fascinated by it, which, that's why he ended up looking into the practice. But I would definitely say there's tons of social taboos against it. I don't know if the Hylians would actually have written laws against necromancy because no one really practices it in Hyrule.
Yeah.
Not in like a ritualized way or what's that word? Like there's no like codified necromancy within the kingdom of Hyrule itself. No one really practices it. Obviously, it's been practiced all over Hyrule in different ways. I mean, Hylians don't even really dig up. They don't even practice archaeology.
Yeah.
Hylians are good boys when it comes to necromancy. The Gerudo have forms of necromancy though, especially like communing with their ancestors. So yeah, the Gerudo aren't necessarily against it. There's no real, but the Gerudo also ritualized it too, and they kind of practice it in a much less destructive way.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, their form of necromancy is more passive.
Yeah, I mean, it's still not a good thing, and it ends up backfiring on Twinrova because freaking necromancy. But yeah, usually ritualizing things is an attempt to make it more safe.
Yeah.
I think that answers that question. I guess that was related to Aquazoo, so I felt like yeah. Generally, communing with spirits, even in history, is. I mean, again, it depends on the culture. Like communing with the dead is still in some cultures seen as a bad thing, but there is an element. Again, the problem with digging up the past is its ambiguity. That's the problem with it. Like if you're communing with something dead, if you're trying to bring alive something that's been dead, its ambiguous nature can backfire on you. Like I actually brought up an example the other day in the Discord. My favorite example through history was the entire Egyptology movement in like the 1600s. Basically there was no one knew anything about like ancient Egypt at all. And there's all these ruins and stuff, and everyone's obsessed with, discovering all this lost stuff with Egypt, and no one knows how the hell to read the hieroglyphs and stuff, and everyone's just constructing this narrative around what they're seeing, and they're constructing this narrative by projecting what they want into the hieroglyphs and stuff. And so one of my favorite people involved was actually Newton, who believed Egypt was like some super advanced like civilization that knew all the secrets of the world and everything. So he thought it was like super Atlantis, but all the people during like the 1600s, they were constructing all these narratives around Egypt and wielding it as a weapon. Like there's these four hieroglyphs in Egyptian that like have different skin tones for people, and people were using that to categorize human beings, even though that's not what the hieroglyphs actually meant. So they were practicing necromancy. They were projecting all of their will and desire into the ruins of Egypt and using it as a weapon to affect the world. And then as soon as the Rosetta Stone was discovered, and people could actually, in a more real sense, like read the hieroglyphs and find out what the hell was going on with, the ancient Egyptians, all of their narratives completely blew up in their faces and it destroyed all their work. That's necromancy, and that's why it's dangerous. It's because you don't actually know what you're digging up and giving life to. And most
Yeah,
of the time when you do that, you are actually projecting something into the past. And then when the past is actually fully manifested, because it's not what you thought it was, it eats and destroys you, basically. That's why necromancy's bad. And we see people doing it now with dinosaurs. Like, no one knows what a dinosaur actually looks like. No one knows what a dinosaur really looks like. But we have all of these narratives that are being constructed about dinosaurs, but we don't actually know. That's necromancy. Sorry, we went on a tangent. I'm sorry. Like,
we actually did a stream related to this alpha.
yeah, we did a whole necromancy stream.
Which turned into is technology necromancy.
I still don't know what my opinion on that is, but I do think you do have a point with your connection between technology and necromancy. But anyway, I'm sorry I went on a tangent about necromancy. I mean, I guess it is kind of related because we are talking about Aquazoo.
Yeah.
He is digging up all the secrets of the ancient Kavalians, and it backfires on him. He becomes a monster.
Would you still say that, despite going down this, relatively dark path, he's still trying to enact, or I wouldn't enact is the proper word, but somehow restore his idea of the Kingdom of Hyrule that
Yes.
he saw? Yeah, right. So
he
what he respected Marala for and her predecessors, right?
Yes, he has a very specific vision of what the Kingdom Hyrule is, or was, is, and always should be. And things changed, and he basically he's stuck in the past, literally.
Yeah.
And that, again, he's tied to necromancy, which is digging up the past and trying to give it life. He's obsessed with the past. That's his flaw. Kind of meta, actually. I kind of sympathize with him a little bit. I understand that having a vision of something and then it kind of changes and then you're like, oh, I want to restore. He's Londo Malari from Babylon 5, basically.
I think that's what makes him such an interesting character. I mean, again, you can clearly tell that the entire ordeal with him and his, Daphne's Oriah really messed him up in terms of how bitter he became.
Yeah.
I do actually feel he was wronged. I don't, again, like we've touched upon in the part 1, I don't think, Daphne's was being malicious, but I would still say that Axe was definitely wronged.
Yeah, I definitely agree that Aquazoo was wronged. But I would say that he handled it completely wrong.
Yeah. Because again,
it's not. I would say Aquazoo is still in the wrong because of the way he dealt with it.
yeah. It's just it's not justifiable, but it's an explanation, and it's a shame that Daphne dies, because it would be interesting to kind of see his perspective from it. I think that's kind of the irony of it, though, that he will never witness what his choices ultimately led to, right? I think that's kind of ironic in a way, and I like that.
Yeah.
But it's a shame. I do think it's a shame as well. What if?
Yeah. It is funny to think, what if his marriage with Oriah continued, and
do you think Daphnis, while he wouldn't dwell on it probably too much due to who he is, do you think somewhere in there he knew and kind of was regretful?
He's too Chad for that. I don't know, maybe a little bit, but maybe he honestly thought Aquazoo was man enough to move on.
Yeah. I mean, I think
Which
that's
is probably he's probably just projecting himself into Akazu, because if that happened to Kazak, he'd be like, oh, I'll just find another woman, whatever,
yeah.
because he's a Chad.
Because like I don't think it would like bother him too much, but I honestly, if I would personally, I would actually feel some responsibility
I
when
think I think he underestimated how much it hurt Akazu, or
yeah
I think in his mind at the time he probably thought like, oh, he'll be fine with it. If I was in his shoes, I'd be fine with it. I'd be like, oh, I guess she wants to marry him. I'll find another another noble woman or something, because I'm Daddy Daphne's. I'm the Chad. He probably thought Akazu would be like him, and then he realized, oh, well, I mean, I guess he wouldn't realize it till years later. I guess he's like, oh, I guess that fucked him up more than I thought it would. Whoops. To be fair to Kazak, Akazu didn't make any deal about it when he basically kept to
no.
himself about it and let it fester for like 20 years.
That is actually an interesting point. I would it would if he actually told him, like he went out and actually said, "Yo, this is not
Yeah,
cool." You know,
all of it might have been avoided if Akazu was like, "Hey, bros before hoes."
yeah, don't break the bro code.
Kazak probably would have been like, "Yeah, that's kind of douchey. I'll tell her no. Don't annul the marriage." But
yeah,
Akazu didn't do anything about it. But again, he's a letter of the law kind of guy. He's like, well, that's what the princess wants. I'm gonna respect the law and let her annul the marriage. I'm gonna keep silent and do my duty. And then it just festered for 20 years until it exploded, and he destroyed like half the kingdom.
yeah.
And he helped the Goma destroy half the kingdom.
Again, we see that pattern of what happens. Necessarily, I wouldn't say Uriah was wrong, but it kind of does. Kind of again, this pattern of marrying for love or desire has terrible consequences for people in power.
Yeah, yeah, that's something modern people will
The thing
probably
is,
never get, because it's
it's
not how it
extremely
works anymore.
I know it sounds pessimistic, and it does kind of sound like you're inadvertently kind of supporting arranged marriages, which is
I'm not.
Yeah. No,
I'm
me neither. But it's a different context, right? You always have to keep that in mind that it's a different context.
Yeah. I always joke that people probably think I'm a monarchist, but I'm actually not a monarchist at all. I actually think if we restored monarchy the way it was in this day and age, it would be a disaster because of the power of technology.
Yeah.
Because the reason monarchy worked at the time it did is because even though a king had a lot of power, he had very limited reach, so he had to naturally filter the power down through a hierarchy below him. So you have the kings and the lords and the dukes, and they're like, it would filter down.
The keys to power.
So
Essentially,
even though he was the head, he really only had absolute power in his immediate vicinity. So he naturally had to divide the power and trickle it down a hierarchy across the span of his kingdom. And obviously that became weaker as a kingdom expanded, which is why a lot of kingdoms were generally really small during the Middle Ages. The problem with technology is a king could have incredibly destructive absolute power on a large scale over a vast distance, which is really terrifying. He could have. The thing is, that wouldn't last very long because it's just one guy. So a reestablished monarchy would implode on itself really fast. But while a single monarch in modernity had that power, there is the distinct possibility he would exercise a lot of destructive power in a really short span of time before it exploded in his face. So I think bringing back monarchy is a dangerous idea, at least in our current context.
Yeah.
You basically have to you basically have to reverse everything back to the Middle Ages to successfully reinstate it, and I think destroying our technology is a bad idea too. We've gone off on a tangent again.
Yeah, that's how it goes. No, but I think again that actually speaking of marriage, that's actually an interesting thing, you know, that can be done in this arc is actually show, you know, the culture behind marriage in Hyrule. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, the ritual aspect of it, which I think is always interesting. And that's why when we discussed the funeral, that's so fun because then you can really get into the nitty gritty of the culture.
I really liked doing that scene with the funeral, even though it's so short. There's not even any dialogue during it.
But it says a lot. I know some people have been kind of confused, but I think people that are familiar with burial rites in that context, they kind of got an idea like, wow, it's very apparent they have their own rights, and that's kind of like, I don't think you needed a scene to be longer to kind of get the message across that there is a culture here.
I don't know if you remember, but I had dialogue over that
Yes.
scene when I had a lot of dialogue, and I'm like, you know what? There's gonna be no dialogue here. And not even just that, but the scene with the Temple of Time after too. I had a whole scene with dialogue with everyone in the Temple of Time celebrating, and they all talk to each other. I'm like, you know what? This is all gonna be show, don't tell.
Which I think ultimately paid off, honestly. I think the scene flowed better because when you sent me the initial script, while I did like it, I actually think it was better cutting it out.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a case where cutting out all the dialogue worked, and I don't want to go back and add dialogue into that at all.
No, I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of nice, a lot of the threads that were kind of, the loose threads were kind of.
I think it worked. It worked really well with Darunia and Ruto. The best.
Oh yeah.
I think that's like the best part in that scene with Darunia and Ruto. I'm like, yeah, that sums them up.
And Raru and Impa.
Yeah, Raru and Impa too.
It's a lot of good moments in that short kind of.
I saved all the dialogue for Link and Tetra.
Yeah, but that was a good scene, and it's kind of funny because it is in the cinematic, but it's actually the first time they've actually properly introduced to each other because they've been together for a while, but there was all this crazy stuff going on, so they actually never had the time to actually have a talk.
Yeah. I love that scene.
I think there's a lot of cool potential with marriage as well because marriage is very ritualized.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of cool stuff to do there in terms of tradition. I think Isaria and Volga's marriage would be very interesting, actually.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain that it's gonna be Volga and Saria, not Rudo. But I've been thinking about how like I still need to find a way to set that up because again, I do feel like it would be out of Saria's nature to risk her friendships for a man that she hasn't known for very long.
Yeah.
That really does feel more like a Rudo
thing. The thing is, I sort of get her because due to her past, she's very inexperienced in the world.
You mean Saria?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In how the world outside of the forest functions. That's something I feel she picks up as she goes. But I would say she's come a long way, right, from where she started.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, she's been sheltered so much that I think she would be very, I think her making mistakes like that would make sense because she.
Maybe.
And I don't falter that as a character. That I would blame the Great Decatry for that. And honestly, as they say, the best way to learn is through mistakes.
The thing is, there would have to be something about Volga. There would have to be something about his character that connected with her. Because again, Saria is a character that's really and it's because of her nature. She would be really slow to become involved in anything like that. Whereas Rudo, on the other hand, Rudo's like, yeah, I've known you for like 5 days. I'll get married.
Yeah. I
and
think,
again, that goes with Rudo's kind of Zora nature. I mean, I know she's connected to ice more than water, but she's still a Zora.
I still think the irony that she was supposed to, her father arranged.
Yeah, That was
I think
such a
that is
mean detail I added in at the last second. I had to, though.
honestly, it actually shows that there are some political intrigue going on in the background that we are not necessarily privy to, which is cool, right?
The
Because we don't always
characters
see that.
don't like Ruto never finds that out either.
Yeah,
That's something the audience finds out that Ruto never finds out. That if she had listened to her father, she actually would have been in a very happy marriage that she wanted later in life, but blew up in her face.
I I I think in Volga's case, and as I've said, because of the symbolism behind the union, I would always say that his primary motivation would be symbolic, which wouldn't be malicious. It's just kind of that kind of I that's how I imagine it for him in his case. In Saria, that would depend on how he's written as a character.
Yeah.
And again, we still have an idea of where he would go, but he could be multifaceted, right? Like under this kind of iron exterior, there's something else there.
To me, in my mind, Volga is Worf from Star Trek. Which,
in what way?
if you know anything about Worf from Star Trek, he started out as basically like a dumb orc. He's like this really, and when they first introduced Worf in Star Trek, he's basically this brute that is like always angry. He's very like private. He keeps to himself, and he's basically an orc where he just wants to punch everything and he gets mad. But after being on the show for like 18 years, he's like one of the most complex characters in Star Trek, where he has like this really elaborate code of honor and like this like conflict with his own people. Like he's basically one of the most complex characters in Star Trek, which is hilarious to me because he basically started out as like a stupid orc that punches people.
Yeah,
and I kind of see Volga like that, where like when you first meet him, he's like this angry man that like your impression of him is he's just an angry brute that wants to punch people, and there's like nothing to him.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's in. I don't know how familiar you are with Worf from Star Trek.
No. I think that is a good. I would say that's a good approach, and obviously that's kind of when we discussed him initially. That's kind of the impression I got, that he has a very brutish iron exterior, right? But there's more to the character than that.
Yeah, I need to think on that because until 2 weeks ago, Volga was just Mido.
Yeah. And I think honestly it would be very in character for Saria to see beyond.
Yeah.
The exterior. So
yep. As someone pointed out in the comments, yes, like Worf, Volga gets the shit kicked out of him all the time. He gets the crap beaten out of him. That's like a meme with Worf, is even though he's like a security officer, he's constantly like being beaten up and having the crap kicked out of him. He's like very bad at his job. That'll probably be a thing with Volga where he's constantly getting beaten up. But it like doesn't faze him. He's like, whatever, I'll shake it off. It's just a flesh wound. He just recovers.
Again, considering his relationship with, I mean, already when you just consider it's the relationship with his brother and his family as a whole, and the legacy he's been kind of born to live up to, which he refuses, you already have a very interesting character just from that alone, right?
Yeah.
He's the descendant of an entire branch that was that the main focus was to be salty about the birthright they were robbed off.
I didn't even realize this, but it actually in Star Trek, one of the story arcs of Worf, it's all about the transfer of power within the Klingon Empire. And Worf ends up supporting Galron as like I don't know how familiar you are with Star Trek or anyone in the audience, so I might lose people, but in Star Trek, the Klingons have what's called like the High Council, and there's all these houses in the Klingon Empire, and Worf's house has been in conflict with the House of Duras, but he ends up supporting Gowron in his house and putting him as the head of the council, and because of Worf's honor, he ends up turning on Gowron and killing him.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh crap, there's already unintended similarities between Worf and Volga and him, and also Worf and his brother too. I swear this was all unintentional.
I mean, just look at the. I mean, just take one look at Rome. Like, I would say Rome. No, like Tuft kind of perfectly embodies that family, right? But Volga is the exact opposite, and already there you have an interesting dynamic, because it's very clear that Volga rejects his family and what they're about.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of interesting. I would say that potentially might add a lot of interesting aspects to his character. Just
He's
what that might
estranged from
entail.
his family, basically, and he doesn't really have a family, which
Yeah.
I guess Arya can kind of relate to.
I mean, he probably didn't have the best relationship with his father either. So
Yeah, probably not. For him to turn out as angry as he did, he probably had father issues.
probably it's his mom as well. I imagine all the Rome women being salty as hell.
I should be on the throne of Hyrule. Stupid
yeah, exactly.
Zelda.
Like, they all name themselves the same. They're all salt, just like
They're all
pure
salt.
embodiment. They're just embodiment of salt. It's like
Their main export is salt from the north.
Yeah.
From the oceans of the north.
I kind of get it though, because I do think Syl's sister got kind of fucked over in the question of successions. I understand it, but they probably take it to the next level. You can imagine how it was for the Romes when they got news of the Hyrule during the Second Golden Age during Yennere's rule, or her how much that must have hurt, right? Because that's just like a reminder of the prosperity they could have had as a family, and they were just robbed of their birthright.
Yeah.
And I imagine that could play a very interesting part of Volga's character. Ultimately, he kind of, I should say, ironically, he kind of fulfills the legacy that he rejected in a way, where he realizes it's his duty to take the throne, right? That's something he should do.
Yeah, he wanted to reject his family, but oh crap, I'm getting on the throne. That's what my family wanted.
Yeah, right. It's like
he doesn't actually want it, but he's compelled to because of his duty.
Which is funny because like I said, he wanted to reject what his family's legacy, and yet that's ultimately what he ends up doing, which is funny. I wouldn't say he does it in the same way though.
No.
But the end goal is the same. I still think of the House Rome. Stala is the victim because I would blame her. Not really just because what happens to her, but just kind of the position she's in.
I feel Styla in the context of Hyrule Conquest is a character I feel really bad for, and I like as soon as I'm like, okay, she's gonna become an antagonist, I'm gonna introduce her, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have fun like torturing this character, and then like 5 minutes later I'm like, I feel really bad for this character. I don't want all this bad stuff to happen to her because she's a victim.
It's but I do like it. Again, I do like the irony that Hyrule rejects someone that could have been probably one of their better monarchs.
Yeah, that is a recurring theme with the Hylians.
Because of something that is ultimately stupid, right? And again, it shows the kind of the arrogance of the Hylians is that they're willing to throw away a potential candidate for the throne just because of some heirs, right? It's so dumb, but they're an arrogant people.
Yeah, that definitely has always been a trait I've applied to the Hylians. Is they do have like the sense of arrogance around them, which clearly backfires in their face all the time.
They never learn, do they? Well, I guess they do, but it takes a while.
I would say Tetra kind of. Well, I don't know if arrogant is the word I'd use, but yeah, even Tetra's kind of arrogant even after everything that happens. She's like, I'm gonna be a pirate queen. I'm gonna conquer the seas. I guess she doesn't learn. You're right. Even though she's supposed to be, well, I don't know. I guess I don't know. I feel like Tetra doesn't fall victim to arrogance in the back of my head, but I can see
No.
how she kind of does.
I mean, she does collaborate with the other races of Hyrule.
Yeah,
So
that's true. She is able to. I mean, she does humble herself to Darunia, and her great 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 grandmother did too. So there is something about the Zelda line where they seem to be able to humble themselves when the situation calls for it. Whereas it seems like the Romes are just like, no.
I
Again,
think
that's kind
ultimate...
of what.
No, I think no. You make your point.
I was gonna say. I was gonna say it's kind of strange for the Zeldas because the Nohansen line, if you go back far enough, they were known for like, no, we don't need filthy outsiders. No, the Highlands are the best. We don't need any help from the outside. And then it was the Gustavs, who even into the current time, the Gustavs they've been forced to humble, like they've always humbled themselves.
Yeah.
Like they live in freaking Galatia, which is like humble city. It's a little monk city. Well, it's not super little, but it's like this purposely humbled area, like it's like a culture of like monks.
Yeah.
And the Gustavs have purposely humbled themselves. They've quelled their ambition to retake the throne because they know it would destroy them if they got too ambitious. So it's kind of interesting that the Zelda line, especially Nylon, like she humbled herself to Darunia, and that's what won his favor. Like, and she's like such an arrogant like tyrant. I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
I wouldn't call Tetra arrogant actually, but she's still a Hylian. You can definitely see Hylian traits in her.
Yeah. I mean, a
Uh,
lot of her decisions are informed from her visions. Like
yeah.
she she knew Laverna was needed to be dealt with, and she's like, well, there's a bunch of Ordanian peasants here who are kind of mad that Laverna just blew up their capital. I could probably organize them into a giant mob and send them east. I'm gonna do it, even though that's bad optics. But she had a vision of what Laverna was gonna do, so I guess it's not really arrogance if you can actually see the outcome of the future and try and change it.
Yeah. No, ultimately, it's all Tuft's fault. What an ass.
It's all tough. It's all Mito's fault.
I refer to what I said in the first part one, is that the solution to his problem is very obvious, and he's just not competent enough to.
Yeah, marry Styla off to Tetra and Link's descendants, or Styla's kids.
Yeah,
if I was Tuft, I would keep the marriage between Styla and Facade so I could secure an alliance with the Arcadians, and then their children. I'd be the grandfather at that point, so I'd probably have a little bit less say than Facade would, but I would try to instill with them, look, the Tetra's Link and Tetra have taken the throne. Your kids might
actually,
if we help them retake the throne, then your kids, Styla and your kids, they'll probably they'll thank us for helping them retake the throne. You can marry your kids off to them, and that'll get us connected to the throne again. That's what I would do.
That actually raises an interesting point, and I'm not sure if you've even considered that. Is that Highlands are matrilineal? Are Arcadians matrilineal?
No,
Because
they're not.
Be, right?
Arcadians are not.
They're not.
They're not matrilineal.
No, so that actually raises an interesting question of what would happen in the marriage, because if if Styla married the Hylian, you know, her name would live on and she'd become the matriarch of that family, right? But
Yeah.
because Facade is from a patriarchal culture, he would be, yeah, his name would live on and he would become the patriarch of the family, which
Yeah.
would make kind of that would actually make weaken Tuft's position
Yep.
in.
He would need multiple children of both male and female in order to be happy with the situation.
Yeah.
He would need a son to appease the Arcadians, and he would need a daughter to appease the Hylians. So it would cause issues, but it wouldn't work anyway because Facade destroyed. I'm just saying, if I was in tough position, you know,
Yeah.
obviously I wouldn't have the knowledge of Facade being like, yeah, I'm gonna marry Tetra, screw this alliance. I wouldn't have knowledge of that. But that's what I would have been trying to do from once I realized. Actually, at that point, he wouldn't know that. He would still think Tetra's a bastard. So no, I probably wouldn't do that. Actually, I would need foresight.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Because the problem is that, okay, so let's say Tuft went with that, like you said. Facade could say no. He could just say no, and Tuft wouldn't have any say in it because he gave his daughter away to a different family.
I would, but if everything with Arcadia fell through, and I'm like, okay, well, this isn't working out with Facade, I would still ally with Link and Tetra as soon as I realized what was going on, and be like, okay, the style is we'll help you take the throne, and then in return for our help and our support, Styla will marry one of your children or one of Styla's children. One of my descendants is gonna marry one of your descendants, so that we're reconnected to the throne. That's what I would do if I was in Tuft's position, but that's projecting my personality and thoughts into the situation.
Because he's stupid.
He has all his baggage, and the thing is, if I was in Hyrule, I would have different baggage than I would have from the real world. Because it's easy for me to be like, if I was in tough position, because I have no baggage that's connected to any of the characters in that world. I'm an outsider. Like, I'm able to easily be like, yeah, if I was Tuft. But if I was Tuft, I'd probably have his baggage, and I'd hate Tetra.
I was about to say, it could be simple as he's not really dumb, but, well, he's dumb, but it's mostly pride. That he doesn't want to, he doesn't want to reunify the branches.
This is why I actually hate hypotheticals, because hypotheticals is like a modern thing. You're trying to remove all your baggage and look at something as like some omnipotent objective being from like outside that you can't. I hate hypotheticals.
Yeah. No, because actually it would make sense for him not to actually arrange a marriage, because he probably would, because of his family history, he probably would be, he very prideful, and having him marry off his daughter to the Johansons would be like him losing.
Yeah, it would be him. He would have to humble himself. He would see it as a loss, even though it actually make him win.
And in his head, he wouldn't need to humble himself because his family was wronged.
Yeah,
right?
That's more important to him. And it all collapses on him.
Well deserved. Burger King.
The Burger King.
I think, is there anything else you could add? I think we could maybe do like a Q&A, and then we could wrap it up here. If there's anything else you'd like to touch upon.
I can't really... I guess we've kind of... I mean, we haven't really talked about Impa at all, but...
We did actually touch upon her a bit in part 1.
Yeah, we did. I guess, we could just do a Q&A for a while, and then we'll take a break from the streams. Yeah, we didn't mean to do like a 3-part stream. It's just the first day I got really hungry and we ended the stream short. And then yesterday we were so off topic we barely even talked about it. So and I don't know, I'm kind of satisfied. I guess we could we could end it here. Hang on just a second. Huh?
I actually have something to say that the chat might be interested in.
What do you have to say?
Okay, so I was sleeping, and instead of your talking waking me up, I had a dream that you were having this convention with everyone in the chat there. who was listening to what you were saying. And the weird thing was, we were like walking around museums and stuff, and I was still dreaming about other things happening. Like I saw this cat trying to very gently play with a pigeon who clearly didn't want to play. But like I could hear you talking about the necromancy and the Egypt and stuff. And like I actually thought of something in my dream about the necromancy stuff that sort of made sense. That like if you think about it as an example of like if you've ever remembered something from when you were a child that you know you
the false
like,
memory thing.
Well, like nostalgia in general, yeah, the false memories too. Like when you're like, you know, you're like, oh, I remember that thing and it was so great and I wish I had that thing again. The world now sucks, and then you get that thing and you're like, this is awful.
Yeah.
It's like that's kind of like what necromancy is. But like if you think about,
that's why nostalgia, the word it actually has an extremely negative connotation.
But
nostalgia's a bad thing.
It's like if we're watching Shazam and how he had that memory of his mother.
Oh
and
yeah,
he
yeah,
actually
yeah.
found his mother.
It destroyed him.
The thing was, since I've grown up in foster care, and like I hated that scene because it was heart wrenching, but I also love the way they did that because that's exactly what it's like when you've grown up from a young age in foster care and then you meet your birth parents again. They're not what you remember them to be, because when you're little, you remember them with this, the glow of childhood. You're supposed to look at your mother with this admiration because that's your guide.
Yeah.
But you get older and you become more discerning about behavior, and you realize that, at least coming from a foster care background, that you grow up and you look at your birth parents and you're like, these are some of the most broken people you've ever seen. So that's a bit like necromancy, and it's just like, would you rather have been able to not bring that back?
I would say there's a slight difference. Well, yeah, I guess that's the thing I was gonna say. There's a difference. Is necromancy is an active attempt. Well, nostalgia is more. It's kind of just in your head.
No, for him, it was an active attempt. Remember,
for him, he actually.
But many foster children are like that. When they get out of foster care, when they get out of an adoptive situation, they will actively look for their birth parents, because that feeling of security and of love that you had for the parent as a very, very small child, which is very natural, you want that back because you feel like you've lost that.
Yeah.
Growing up in foster care where you don't have any stability. But then you find them and you're like, it's not at all what you remember it was.
Because there's no actual connection there. The connection's severed. And that's also another problem with necromancy, is there's not a connection. I guess it would be, if you're going to practice necromancy, it would be safer to practice it on something that's actually more connected to you.
But anyway, the dream was really funny though, because I was hearing the whole conversation. I kept thinking, although I don't remember all of it now, I kept thinking of things that I wanted to say.
But you were asleep.
But I was asleep.
Well, welcome to the waking world.
But it was just funny though, because also you would say things, and then you would, because I was only hearing your side of the conversation, there would be these awkward pauses, and all the people in the chat who were in the crowd would just be completely silent. I'm like, this is so weird.
I hope you said hi to Tarm for me.
Who?
Tarm.
Who's that?
Well, Tarm's not a person, I guess, so...
No, it was just us walking around.
Okay.
You mean the fairies of Tarm? No, there was just this, it was just us walking around with this weird, like, mobile convention of all of your chat people.
Okay.
And you were talking about stuff, and then I was, like, wanting to say things, but then I also just saw other unrelated things happening because we were, like, walking around, so, like, I saw, like, a cat trying to play with a pigeon that didn't want to play, and, like, stuff like that, like...
Well, I'm glad my conversation caused you to have a weird museum dream. Anyway.
Hi, all the people in the chat. I saw you in my dream.
Tarm manifested them to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess, we'll do a Q&A for like a half hour or so. Let's see, how long have we been going on? 2 hours? How long do you want to go on for, Deox?
I feel, honestly, we should just do maybe a Q&A, and when we start seeing that the questions stop flowing in, we can just end
All right.
there.
I'll say we'll do a Q&A. If we manage to get enough to go for an hour, we'll cut it off in an hour. So that way we'll nicely sit at 3 hours. But I don't know if it fizzles off before that, we'll end before that. But we'll try not to go longer than an hour, just so I can actually work on Hylia and stuff, I guess. And you probably want to go to sleep. And I forgot Exo is here.
Yeah, I still exist.
He's just been there in the background lurking the whole time.
Yeah, I've been just doing some other stuff, but I'm growing a bit tired, so I just want to get some of the stuff over with in a bit.
Yeah, if you want to head out, then that's fine. But I'm seeing questions starting to pop up in the
I-
chat. I think we're like
before-
3 minutes ahead of everyone.
Yeah, before we start, because we've done a good job, stay on topic. I think any question is fine. I think I think you would appreciate it if we could get some questions regarding what we've been discussing, because that would be nice. Because that means if there was something we weren't clear on, or you want some clarification on something, there's something that you didn't understand, that would be nice. That this is a nice time to ask those questions, because then we can address those.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess let me scroll up and see if I can find I see people talking about the cat. Yeah, the cat generally makes noise at least once per stream.
Yep.
I think I scrolled too far up. I'm not seeing any questions up there. Let's see, I see people asking about the Oka development and lore. I haven't really worked on the Oka faction yet. Should we talk about Oka lore?
No, we should not.
Okay, I guess we'll save the Oka for when we actually get to the Oka then. I think the Oka will be an awesome faction when I get to them, but they're pretty close in the list of factions to do. I think they're like 4 or 5 factions away.
Yeah.
So Neph, show your next time. Show your face with the webcams. Well, first I need to get a webcam.
Don't have a webcam?
No, I don't have one. I haven't had one for years. I did years ago, but I just never felt the need to get one.
I think I have one, but I don't know if it's compatible with newer computers.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll think about that. I don't really feel a need. I don't really feel a need to.
I tried last stream, Iron Wolf. I tried it last stream, but to cater to Ikana, but Neph and Diok shut me down harsh.
Well, speaking of Ikana, the next question is related to Ikana. Oh, I think that it actually is Iron Wolf asking that.
Probably.
Yeah.
It
Hey,
is.
big fan here. What are your plans for the Kingdom of Ikana, given all the lore changes over the last few months? At the moment, I don't have any changes for them planned. I am waiting to see what's done with a certain swirly symboled faction in Nintendo canon first. But assuming nothing is done with that in Nintendo canon, Ikana will be the same that they've been for years. Neph, your wife is the official next Sage of Time. Well, she's not my wife yet. We're just engaged.
Why am I Sage of Time? What?
I don't know why, but you're not my wife yet. But in fact, our plans have probably been postponed because of the whole coronavirus thing.
Yeah, I know.
We weren't planning until later in the year next year, but I don't know, depending on how the whole coronavirus thing goes, it's probably gonna get pushed back a little bit more because of your family visiting here, because they're well, sorry, your cat distracted me.
Wait, because my family visiting here? What?
It's probably not a wise idea to have a bunch of people come from from another state
We
here.
have to wait until everything calms down.
So, but yeah, just to clarify, she's not my wife yet. We're engaged. She's my fiance.
I'm confused about the Sage of Time thing.
I am too.
I want more details behind this thought.
Oh, the next Sage of Time. Adrian Kurtz, clarify what you mean by that. I'm kind of confused. See, Undying Nephilim is Marvel Comics necromancy. Is Marvel Comics necromancy? I would say Marvel Comics and a lot of the whole reboot culture thing. I'd actually say that's more in line with cannibalism and incest than necromancy. The concept of rebooting and like using the same thing over and over again. That's more cannibalism and incest than necromancy. That's what I would say. Because necromancy still is if Marvel Comics would do something like necromancy, it would be like them like digging up like old Gnostic stories or mythical stories that have been like not told for thousands of years and trying to bring life to them. That would be them doing necromancy, which I guess they did with Thor initially. Thor is kind of from a long dead religion. Did I disconnect or?
No, we're just listening.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say we've gone 2 hours without YouTube kicking us off, so that's nice. Let's see. What will King Bulblin do besides falling off of bridges? King Bulblin, and at least in my mind, is gonna be an awesome character. Hopefully, he turns out that way.
Yeah. I mean, he's pretty cool. Just the glimpses we get of him in Twilight Princess are pretty cool. It's a shame, like, I mean, it makes sense in the context of the game that you don't really dwell on him, but at least some of the scenes we get kind of, imply that there's more to the character, which is kind of cool. So I do like him in his Canada appearance as well.
Talk about Icona lore. There's like 2 people who love Icona. Cater to us, please. Maybe we'll do a stream on just Icona, like long before we get to Icona. Icona is
blame Breath of the Wild 2. That's
yeah.
Why Icona lore.
I don't want to really say anything concrete about Icona until Breath of the Wild 2 comes out. Because that might actually slightly change something about them, but I'm certain it's not going to. But just in case, and then I'll be able to keep my $2, and then I'll get $2 from Windwinker.
Yeah. I'm gonna buy some nuggets with your money. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. I think I actually think I'm really far behind in the chat because I'm seeing people like actually. I think for some reason my chat is slow, like, to appear on my screen compared to everyone else. Can I be the lore master of Hyrule Conquest? I think that's Deox right now. I think Deox has that title. I think at this point Deox knows more about Hyrule Conquest than I do. Or rather, he has more of it in his head.
Too much of it.
Like, there's things like I put down and then I don't retain because I'm like making room for more things. I think he has more of it in his head at a given time than I do. I have to like be like, oh yeah, I did that. I remember that.
It's the GRM, GERM syndrome, as they call it.
I think it was about like 3 or 4 years ago. I did hit the point where I started. It was so much I couldn't keep it all in my head all at the same time. I started noticing there was things like, oh yeah, I said that or I did that like a year or 2 ago. I forgot about it. It got to the point where it was just too much. So yeah, Deox is the lore master. I still see Icona. That's probably Iron Wolf. Don't worry, Iron Wolf. There'll be a day I talk about Icona and they'll be in the game too.
There is a question that I can answer. So Ikana is Taba. So Ikana and the Sonai will maybe be connected, and that's kind of it. Maybe. I personally think the original idea that was proposed for them was good. It's just that we don't really know what will happen. This was before a sequel was ever, in our minds, so we don't know really. I still think we should just ignore what they do.
Just ignore what they do.
Yeah,
I have just tossed out Nintendo canon stuff before, so I'm not opposed to that, but I do want to see what they do first.
That's fine. If they're still around like ruins and stuff, then I think okay, whatever. But that's what I think that's as much as we'll get, right? If we get anything.
I'm certain they're not gonna flesh out the Zonai at all, just because of the name. Like, their name is a pun.
Yeah.
For those in the chat that don't know what the hell we're talking about, in Nephy canon, the Zonai are Icona. At least that was what I wanted to do. And then a certain sequel was announced that might possibly flesh out the Zonai, and I wanted to see how they did that first. So that's why I'm kind of hesitant to really say anything concrete about Icona, because Although as Deox said, if like they made the Zonai the Tweely, for instance, I should just ignore that and do what I was originally gonna do.
Yeah.
I personally believe the Zonai are not even gonna be mentioned in the second one, like by characters. Like there might be like Zonai ruins, but I don't think we're gonna get any information about them because Zonai purposely doesn't it just mean mystery?
Yeah,
It's a pun.
Yeah.
I'm certain they purposely like the purpose of the Zonai in the context of that game is to always be a mystery.
Yeah.
To never actually know what they are. So that's why I'm certain they'll never. That's why I think all the fan stuff around the Zonai is just hilarious. Because I'm like, you guys, their name is a pun. There's so much like in the True Zelda Discord. There was so much like. Well, the thing is, it's a meme there too. Like they all think it's a joke, but whatever. I think that answers the Icona thing.
Yeah, I think so.
Someone is asking about a new Hylian unit that was posted. If there's a new Hylian unit that was just posted, it shouldn't be. That is a patron only thing. So, if you are in the patron Discord and you're posting things outside of it, I politely request you keep the patron stuff there until I show it publicly. That kind of defeats the purpose of the patron Discord.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever explicitly like made that rule, so I guess I'll let it go. But if you are a patron and you're in the patron Discord, if I post something in the patron Discord, I request you keep it there until I make it public, because it's supposed to be for the patrons. I assume they're talking about the Hylian thing I posted last night, which is one of their new units that I'll be showing probably sometime next week, because I'm already almost done with redoing the Hylians. But they have a new kind of mage unit. That's all I'll say until I show the video with the Hylian stuff. I think the chat actually froze on me. It's not letting me. Oh, they're not letting me scroll down. I'll only become a patron if you make Hyrule Conquest Waifu Simulator. We've joked that I'd probably be a very, very rich man if I ever did that, but I don't have any plans for Hyrule Conquest Waifu Simulator.
That might actually be very funny.
Don't take him seriously. That's a lie. This is an official thing. It's being developed in secret.
Maybe if I finish Hyrule Conquest in its entirety, maybe then I'll consider Waifu Simulator. To be honest, I do think that could be a fun idea. But also, to be honest, I don't think people would like what I did with that.
Yeah, it would be a parody. It would be a parody. It would be
really funny.
It probably would.
A tea date with Solcaris.
A date with Solcaris.
Tea time with Solcaris.
the end. There's like no way to escape, like just being consumed by the Goma.
Yeah.
It's like no matter what you do, you end up being eaten by the Goma.
Yeah, as time goes on during the tea party, right, you just see Goma creeping in from the periphery, and that's until he just consumed everything. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Like you get this very rosy garden, you know, like I'm glad you have arrived. You know, and then and it's like, you're going to accept my invitation, right? All the Goma lurking around.
Honestly, I'm kind of surprised there's never been a Game of Thrones Waifu Simulator.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, I don't think I know you've never played it, but I remember telling you about the Doki Doki Literature Club, how it acts like it's a dating simulator, but it's actually a horror game.
Yeah.
You could do something like that.
Maybe. The thing is, knowing me, I would actually want to make like an actual serious like relationship simulator thing, not like a weeaboo like fantasy thing, like an actual serious thing. And I don't think people would like that when they think waifu simulator.
Yeah. They
think like waifu simulator, like it's a fantasy thing that you indulge in. I would like do something legitimate.
You have to deal with her PMS. Like...
Yeah, it wouldn't be like, yo, you just you know, are nice to them and then you have a harem. It would be like if you do certain things that are contrary to the nature of the character, like they would, yeah. I don't think people would like that, so they would hate my waifu simulator. Anyway, let's see what other questions there are.
Are there gonna be any wedgies in the wives?
Yeah, well, yeah, as a joke, probably. I would do that.
Oh, please don't. Please don't.
Let's see what
We're
other
gonna have,
questions there are.
We're gonna have Fishtail, Ruto, Tsundere in there. And then, do we have which other archetypes do we need for the simulator?
Yeah, Ruto would be Sundere. I can't remember the other ones. I honestly, like, I don't really like weeb culture, so I don't really participate in it, so I forget all the different anime girl archetypes. All I know is Sundere.
Nice save. Nice save. Nice save.
Nice save, dude. Like,
Nice save.
What?
Nephy.
Wow, this is all going over my head now. Nephy the
yeah. Deox and I have climbed too many ladders. So if you
there's no way.
Oh,
There's no way
YouTube.
yeah, we cannot.
I guess.
We cannot discuss.
Well,
our way out
now
of
I'm
here.
getting connection issues.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I guess now it's getting mad that we're talking about Waifu Simulator, but I'm not. I'm actually. Do you see any more questions in the chat? Because I'm actually. Now it just looks like it's devolving into everyone talking about Waifu Simulator.
Yeah. Yeah, if there's no more questions, I guess we could wrap it up here.
Yeah.
Oh,
before we go into-
Let's
No. But Nev, weren't you planning to make some body pillow merch?
No.
No.
Not. I'm not interested.
Deox is going to help sponsor it from his weep company.
Nah, I don't have any plans for that. I'm sorry, guys. I know that would make me filthy rich, and it would also make me
probably would,
filthy, but
it would be both at the same time.
anyway, off of the Waifu Simulator, if you guys have any questions not related to Waifu Simulator, ask them now, or we'll just wrap this up, and then maybe in 2 or 3 weeks we'll do another one. Oh, there's a question. How long does Midna stay in her imp form? Probably until she retakes. Well, I guess I'll spoil that. Always, but never? Is that a way I can answer it? I'm pretty sure I'm actually going to do something a little bit different with Midna that's not in Nintendo canon, in regards to the imp. Although I have not completely decided if I'll actually go through with that, but I guess since this is a spoiler stream, I'll go ahead and throw it out there. There's 2 Midnas, sort of, or I should say there's 2 halves to Midna. Is that a satisfying answer?
No, but yes, but no.
Yes, but no.
We'll have to do. It will have to do for now.
All right. Let's see. Why is Burn not part of the Forsaken anymore? He should be. If he's not on the wiki, that was not my doing. Burn is still connected to Malladus and the Ocean Blends. So if someone got rid of Burn on there, that just a heads up, I pretty much don't have any time to do anything on the wiki myself. So all the stuff there is courtesy of Loopy and Deox and Codemin and other people that maintain the wiki. So ask them why they got rid of Burn. Is it Burn or Bernie? I hope it's Burn, because Bernie sounds dumb. I really hope it's Burn. Bernie.
We'll go.
Hey.
We'll go with Burn.
Burn. Yeah.
We'll go with Burn.
Yeah, I'm just gonna call him Burn. It's kind of like Fee. I call her Fee, even though the proper pronunciation is Fi. I'm always gonna call her Fee because Fi just does not roll off the tongue.
Yeah, fine. It sounds weird.
Yeah, fee fi fo fum.
Yeah.
Codeman says Burn is still on the Burn. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Burn because all their names are puns on I'm pretty sure Burn is in Burn, like burning.
Yeah.
I think it actually is Burn, not Bernie. Just like Cole is Cole. I really hate the pun names. I'll go ahead and I'll mention that now. I absolutely hate. That's one of the reasons why I hate a lot of the more recent. Not. It's not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons why I hate a lot of the more recent Zelda games. Is all the names are puns and jokes. It's really stupid. And Spirit Tracks is a great example of that. All of their names are like train puns. You have Engine, Cole. I didn't even realize Burn until just now. I guess his name is Burn, like burning.
Oh.
It's so dumb. It's the same thing with A Link Between Worlds, which, even though that's probably one of the better games, the whole every name is a pun is retarded. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. That was one positive we found about Breath of the Wild the other day. Is not every name is a goddamn pun in that game. Just some of them are.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of decent names in Breath of the Wild.
So there's one more positive bullet point for Breath of the Wild. 90% of the names are not stupid puns. Yay. Okay, let's see what other questions there are. How was Demoko able to weaponize the aura? Well, anything can be turned into a weapon. Literally anything can be turned into a weapon. It's how you use it. Minda brass tower. Would you say Minda is trying to make a brass tower? I don't think so. She's
well, honestly, I this is funny because
You think everything's a brass tower?
No, it's just her, like in her history book is a brass tower.
Kind of.
Kinda.
It can be used as one.
Yeah, I wouldn't say she's actively making one though.
Okay.
But there are elements to her arc that might have aspects of it, but I wouldn't say the difference is she isn't actively making one with the intent of making one, and that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
Brass towers are again the meme with intent. It's about intent, and if you're actively making one or not. That's usually what's more important.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure if I don't know if I have an opinion on it at the moment, but I'm not sure if intent is integral to making a brass tower. I think I don't know. I kind of agree with you. I do feel like intentionality is a component of making a brass tower.
Yeah, it's not a component, but it's definitely one of one of the main factors.
The reason why I'm kind of hesitant to say that is I see a lot of brass towers being built in modernity that the people involved in them don't seem to consciously be aware of what they're doing. Like the whole singularity movement, like I feel like they really are just ignorant of what they're doing.
I think there's a difference. But I also think it's the difference between creating a brass tower, not actively creating one. Like you are creating one as a result of something else. But what's more important are people making the thing you made into a brass tower, right? I think that's the bigger. I think that's the bigger. So let's say her Hyrule Historia, that's not her intent at all, right?
But someone could take that and use it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, anything can be turned into a weapon.
Yep.
All right, tied two questions together. Let's see. Haramir is asking, when would you say modern Zelda stupidity started? If I can be honest, I think it's a case where Zelda was kind of just always a little stupid, and it was more like I just kind of became more conscious of it. I would say my Aquazooian conception of the ideal of Zelda was actually basically just Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess. They're actually kind of like the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
makes sense because I started with Ocarina of Time, so that naturally colored how everything else is after that point. That's kind of like my starting point. But when you look at the entire series, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Masks, they're actually the exception. Most Zelda games are kind of weird and silly, even the older ones. I mean, even A Link to the Past. But for me personally, it really was, no pun intended, it was Spirit Tracks that sent everything it started sending everything off the rails. To me, that was like, I know for you, Deox, it was Phantom Hourglass, but I managed to get through Phantom Hourglass without. The thing is, I remember when I first played Phantom Hourglass and I beat it really fast, and I did feel like something was off about it, but it didn't really like hit me yet. It was Spirit Tracks that did it for
again,
me.
I'm because I really like Wind Waker's ending. Okay, that's why I'm salty.
Yeah, that's why you're salty about Phantom Hourglass, because the ending of Wind Waker.
Yes.
Well, then you should be salty about Twilight Princess then, because Twilight
No, because
Princess is like a completely, it's completely hypocritical to the theme of Wind Waker, which is the like of the past.
The thing is, I always, when it comes to theming, I always separated them in timelines, and I think
Yeah.
the Wind Waker theme is very explicitly resolved in the ending. Meanwhile, Ocarina of Time nor Majora's Mask felt like they actually resolved the main theme of that timeline, right? The child timeline.
Yeah,
So,
and to me, the theme of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask is the loss of childhood and dealing with becoming an adult.
yeah.
Ocarina of Time, he forcibly loses his childhood and he's forced to become an adult, and then Majora's Mask is like he was never taught to be an adult.
Yeah.
That's what I don't know how conscious the people were when they made the game, but all of the antagonism in Majora's Mask is caused by children who
It's like,
and all basically all the adult figures in Termina, they're like all idiots that are letting the children run amok. Like even the villain of the game, it's Skull Kid, Skull Child. It's a kid. It's a child that's run rampant.
yeah.
So Majora's Mask is like Link realizing like he can't go back to being a kid anymore.
So I'll summarize like the
Which
main
is why
hero.
Twilight Princess kind of pisses me off, because they could have capped it up nicely because he's a fucking adult and he has like a life in that game. They could have done something with it, but they couldn't make it a direct sequel. But anyway, I'm sorry. I'll stop ranting.
I'll interject before I make my point regarding
Okay.
Twilight Princess. They actually show the hero of time, and they actually show the result that messed up.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, the regret of not being able to pass on
Yeah.
their experience, and I think that's a nice. It's not ideal, but I think it's a nice way to tie it up.
I mean,
But
it's better than nothing at all or other things they could have done. And again, I love Twilight Princess as a game. I just feel like it would have been superior if it was more directly connected to Majora's Mask and Ocarina
yeah, I
of
agree.
Time.
I agree with that. But
It's more like a
but I was
missed
gonna
opportunity, which honestly, that's the Zelda series in a nutshell. Just massive missed opportunity.
Yeah. So what I was going to say with the timeline with the themes is like just quickly, because I have mentioned it before, is that the timeline can be separated not just in timelines, but they're largely separated by theming.
Yeah.
There are multiple themes that are important in those timelines, but like the adult timeline with Wind Waker is largely driven by the desire of moving on from the past. And that's what Wind Waker resolves, moving on to something new. The child timeline is largely driven by the hero of time and the result of him being a child and the relationship with him and Ganondorf, how Ganondorf, the duality between those two and the conflict there. And then you have the fallen hero timeline, which is about a perpetual conflict between the royal family and a demon, and how they're never able to truly defeat the demon because it keeps coming back and haunting them. So those are like very three central themes And I honestly think that Nintendo, in most cases, they actually managed to stick to those themes pretty well. It's just I think Phantom Hourglass feels like a filler game, and it kind of leeches off the very good ending that Wind Waker had. That's just my opinion. I actually think Spirit Tracks fits more into that timeline than Phantom Hourglass does.
If the theme is like moving on and doing weird new shit, then yeah, Spirit Tracks it hits the yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So then again, they break the theming. I mean, you look at Four Sword Adventures, so who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
But have you two ever taken Zelda lore remotely seriously?
Yeah, I would say I
personally
used
really
to,
haven't.
but now I don't anymore. I used to, but
Yeah.
you know, I grew up and then I found other things that clearly had more well-developed lore and I could compare it to Zelda and I'm like, okay, I guess Zelda's kind of half-assed at best compared to like
Elder Scrolls.
yeah, compared to Elder Scrolls and Lord of the Rings and fucking Game of Thrones.
I don't want to go into a huge tangent, but I see Angel Falls Last, and you're right regarding Phantom Hourglass. It's just that I don't think it was needed. It feels kind of like they're double dipping in the ending. Like we got the
Double
point
dipping.
yeah, we got the point in Wind Waker. That's where it should have ended. It was a very nice resolution, and I don't think they needed to add anything to it because adding on to it kind of defeats the purpose, the impact of the ending in Wind Waker, where they are sailing into the unknown and letting go of the past. We didn't need to see those characters again. Like their story was finished.
Yeah, that was kind of
the
the point, I guess, of the ending of the game. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not. I think you're right. It's just I don't think it was needed at all.
And then inverse of that, you hate the ending of Breath of the Wild, which is like it's like that like in the context of the game itself, where she completely ruins the theme of that game too.
Because I would argue that Wind Waker and Breath of the Wild have very similar themes. It's just that one managed to execute it in a way that makes sense for the theme, and the other didn't. Right? And it bothers me. But here's the thing: they have a chance to redeem themselves, so I'm not gonna say anything. But I didn't know that initially, right? So
they won't. But I'm pessimistic, so maybe they will.
maybe.
Anyway, someone asked, is Malomart secretly working for Majora? Well, I would say that almost everyone in Hyrule is, to some degree, furthering the purpose of Majora. Even those that aren't even aware, it's kind of hard to avoid death. It's kind of hard to not participate in Majora in terms of what he is. So yeah, Malomart is probably on some level furthering the agenda of Majora, just as almost every character is. It's just a question of to what degree, and I guess that question of intentionality. This might trigger Deox. Number names as Elder Scrolls lore is not good either. I would say that it definitely lost something when they got rid of Kirkbride.
Elder Scrolls lore was good until Todd Howard decided that they didn't want to remove complexity. I would define what is good lore, because I actually think the lore up to Morrowind, especially Morrowind, is really, really good, and I think very few games have ever even come close to the lore of Morrowind.
Yeah, Morrowind's.
Just in terms of its metaphysics and how it's set up. I know people don't like Kirkbride because they don't like his, symbolism babble, and that's fair. But that's fair. I think that's fair, but that doesn't. Just because you personally don't enjoy that sort of world building doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's just not your preferred taste, which is completely valid, right? I think I wouldn't say it's bad. It's just not, it's fine if it's not your kind of thing. And I know people, even Elder Scrolls fans, are divided on that. Some people hate Kirkbride, some people love the guy, really respect the work he's done. So even the Elder Scrolls fan base is divided on the issue.
Alden Jitpace is asking, how did Breath of the Wild fail exactly? Do you mean like my?
The ending is probably the ending.
Yeah,
ending
yeah, I was gonna ask him to. Did you mean the ending of it or like the whole game? Because we were just talking about the ending in particular, in which Princess Zelda basically goes completely back on everything she stood for in the ending.
Yeah,
in
like
that game?
I'm not. The thing is, ruined is not the proper phrase, but I would rather, because, yeah, like Neff said, that there's this building up that, first of all, she doesn't want to be a princess. There's also very nice foreshadowing that from her father that she is the heir to the throne of nothing, which she ultimately ends up being right. And I feel her character arc would have made more sense if it ended with her accepting that the kingdom is gone and she's no longer a princess.
And then at the end of the game, she's like, "Let's remake the kingdom and restart everything," and then this whole problem's just gonna start again. It's
exactly,
like,
because
it's a complete random 180-degree turn at the very end of the game.
Because the kingdom,
and I know that Deox hates that a lot. To me,
the point
on.
is it failed. No, but the point is the kingdom failed, and it wouldn't. I don't understand how she came to that conclusion, because her failure is a product of the kingdom's failure.
See, funnily enough, to me, that ending doesn't actually bother me as much, because to me, she's a fucking idiot in that game. So of course she would think of something stupid like that. So it doesn't. Oddly enough, to me, that weird ending is actually in line with her terrible character that they presented in the game. So the ending doesn't bother me as much as it bothers you.
I think I disagree.
To me, it's more funny than infuriating.
I think the reason I disagree is because I actually think that she had a pretty, like, she actually redeems herself in the end of the game. The problem is that we don't see her actually learning from her redemption.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Because I agree with you that she is kind of immature and all the stuff we discussed previously, but she does actually redeem herself when she takes responsibility and actually plays the role she's supposed to play. And that's the point, that's when everything goes back, not to normal, but that's how everything is fixed, because she finally gives in and plays her part.
Yeah.
Which
I
don't understand why. Which I never understood why people praise the game for having a sort of narrative that supports, you doing your own thing, because that's ultimately not what she does. She tries to do her own thing and she fails, and then she actually does what her father wanted, and everything goes back to
that's
normal.
what I kept saying. Like, even in terms of gameplay, the game has like this weird contradictory thing where they're like, okay, the goal of this game is it's supposed to be big and expansive, yet they purposely use artistic techniques to make it feel small and compact. They use the silent film thing and the color palette to make it feel like like they purposely do things in the game that are contrary to what the theme or the goal of it is. It's the same thing with the weapon breaking.
Like using silent film music for the only game that has voiceovers?
Yes, exactly. It's so weird. And like, that's supposed to be this big game where you can go and do anything at any time, but there's all these weird artificial like impediments, like the cliffs and the weapon breaking, and like it's so weird. I'm not even saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's a weird thing that seems strange to me. It's like they had all these goals and then they did all of these things that imply the opposite of what they said their goals were. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
And I see that now with what you're saying with Princess, like people liking the whole, like the game is establishing this thing or like, going out and, doing your own thing or whatever, and then it does a 180 and it's like, no, do the thing your father said. Like, it's like this contradict. I don't know.
That's the funny thing, is that ultimately she gives in to the thing that she didn't want to do, which is, I think, is weird. Like, basically, I'm not going to dwell on this because we've talked about it before. Basically, what I'm saying is, now there's a sequel coming, so I don't know how that will end, but basically what I would prefer is, in the ending, she accepted that the kingdom was gone. She no longer is a princess. No one in Hyrule, besides the Sheikah and the Sora, even acknowledge her claim. Most people have nothing to do with the kingdom as it used to be. It's gone. It failed. but she redeemed herself, and now she can go on to do what she wanted. You know, be a researcher or whatever. And that's the ending. There is no more Hyrule. It's gone. Poof.
Oh well.
And that's okay.
That's
and
not...
that's okay.
Someone's asking, do I know anything about the Witcher franchise? I have all 3 Witcher games installed and ready to go on my computer, and I've had them for several years, but I still haven't played them yet. I just have a very I have surface level knowledge of The Witcher. I don't know tons of details about it. It's on my to-do list. I'll probably give the show a shot, even though I've heard it's really bad. I just don't have any motivation to play the games or watch the show yet. It's all on my to-do list. That and Dark Souls, because everyone keeps saying play Dark Souls.
Everyone says that, regardless of who you are.
Yeah, I haven't bought Dark Souls yet, but I'll try Dark Souls someday. Let's see what other questions are there. Let's see, the message of that, it's not really a question. It seems to be play your part or suffer tremendously, and the part that the survivors of the Calamity play seems to involve perpetuating civilization. I'm not sure how to answer. I guess that's not really a question, so I guess I don't really need to answer that. I think that was actually in response to what we were saying.
Yeah. It's... Again, keep in mind that my opinion regarding this entire thing was formed in a time where I didn't know if this game would have a sequel or not, right? So
yeah.
I
also
You're
keep
pessimistic, and I'm kind of like I would say I'm actually optimistically cautious.
Also, keep in mind, I don't 100% share Deox's opinion on that, actually. As I said, the ending itself doesn't bother me in the same way it bothers him, because she's kind of a bimbo in that game. So I could see her, after all that, at the end being like, yeah, I'm going to rebuild the kingdom. I'm going to reset the status quo and do... I could kind of see that, because she's established... I don't know if it's intentional, but she's not very bright in that game. Which is funny, because she's like supposedly like a quote-unquote researcher. Yeah. She seems to be trying to embody the scientist archetype, but she lacks wisdom. Which is that to me that's the tragedy, is she's supposed to be wisdom. She's not. And that's why that character saddens me. I mean the voice doesn't help.
I feel like a broken record. I've said this several times, so I'll just reserve any further opinions of the sequel is out and I played it. I can make. I'll probably have enough to say by then. So.
Yeah. Rome did nothing wrong.
Rome did nothing wrong.
She has Kingdom Hearts mentality. I don't even want to try and penetrate the lore of Kingdom Hearts. It's an utter mess from just looking in from the outside. Let's see, what else would they do? Go out into the woods and starve. Allow half dozen scattered settlements. Well, the thing is, I'm gonna actually kind of defend Deox here, I guess. On what he's getting at is the settlements that survived the Calamity in Breath of the Wild, they would probably not recognize her authority. And even if they did, they'd probably be pissed because they'd blame her and her father for destroying the kingdom. So
then,
for her to be like, yeah, I'm gonna rebuild the kingdom, like, okay, who the hell's gonna follow you other than Link? Like,
I would ask.
No one recognizes her authority anymore. She's been gone for 100 years, and her family is tied to the destruction that led to all of them being scattered. So, like, if anything, everyone would be hostile to her.
My answer to that question would just be, first of all, I never got the impression in Breath of the Wild that the people were starving or actually struggling at all. Actually, I got the impression they were doing just fine, despite that the Calamity was ravaging in central Hyrule. But at the peripheries in, Hateno Village, people seem to have pretty decent lives.
That was actually one of my complaints about the game, is that supposedly there's this huge calamity, and Ganon's like, and the Guardians are this huge threat, but like, everyone seems to be doing fine after the like civilization's coming back. Everyone's fine. The Guardians aren't attacking cities. Like everything seems fine. There's like that's one of the thing the games is lacking is there's this lack of sense of everything is doomed if you don't do anything. It feels like if you turned off the game, everything would be fine and Ganon would just be stuck in the middle of the map for eternity.
I think there's. A point,
I mean, there's the whole Blood Moon thing, but like, that's
there's
not.
a point that he will break free eventually. That's okay, right? So Link has to step in and stop that, right? I get that, but while he's been sealed off, everything has been going pretty well. The kingdom wasn't needed. That's the point.
They
right?
really should have done something. Like the Guardians are constantly attacking cities and stuff, and like you see the cities like under siege from Guardians, and I don't know, you help the people defend against. I don't know. There's this real, and it's not just a Breath of the Wild problem. It's the same problem in Skyward Sword. There's this lack of this sense of if you don't play the game, things will go to hell. Like especially in Skyward Sword, like Zelda and Impa are fine on their own. Like Link doesn't need to do anything.
Another thing.
there's not that thing that's like you the player need to participate or we're all fucked. That thing, whatever that's called. I don't know what the word for that is.
Sense of urgency?
Yeah, there's no sense of urgency in Breath of the Wild or like in Skyward Sword. There's no sense of urgency basically.
Again, two things I wanna. So you followed up the question. I wanna reply immediately. Is that that's exactly what I addressed. That eventually Ganon would break out. That someone would have to intervene. But for 100 years, he's been relatively stable, and people have been doing okay.
There's
It's
nothing.
not
There's
ideal.
nothing in the game that indicates, oh crap, he's gonna break out if I don't do anything. Like it could be another 100 years. It could be another 1,000 years. Like there's no sense of urgency. The only thing that's going on is like the Blood Moon thing, and that's just like it seems random.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing in the game that implies like what they could have done is they could have had the Malice slowly expanding out from Hyrule Castle and just slowly moving out further into the world. And it would give a sense that the longer you goof off, like it'd be like the moon in Termina, like, oh, if I don't do this, then shit's gonna happen. Like, there's nothing like that in Breath of the Wild.
No. But
There's nothing like that in Skyward Sword either. Like, in Skyward Sword, Impa and Zelda don't even, like, they're always ahead of Link, and they're fine.
I think the more interesting point that you asked though is that should they just leave, just let a few scattered settlements be everything that's left? And I would ask, why is that a problem?
Yeah, why is that?
Why? Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. But I would ask that, why is that a problem? Why does the kingdom have to exist? Is it because
because
failed?
it's the status quo.
Yeah, it failed miserably. And the game shows us that civilization will return at some point. It's just not the same civilization as the one that came before it. And I think that's okay.
Another thing that contributes to a lack of like the sense of urgency in Breath of the Wild is that death doesn't seem to like characters die but they're still there. Like Link dies 100 years before the game, but oh, he's fine. And then Zelda's like she's technically not dead, but she's gone for like 100 years, and then she comes back, oh, I'm fine. And then the champions all die, but their ghosts are still hanging around doing things. Like, death doesn't seem to play like a significant role in that game. And when you take away the consequences of death, that also contributes to like the lack of urgency. So that's probably playing a part of it too. Like,
but
it's like a consequence-free game basically, which, to be fair, that probably was their goal. I don't know. I don't like it, but 14 million people apparently did. Yeah, we've been talking about Breath of the Wild too long, I think.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that, but we'll see. I'll probably have enough to say when I play the sequel, so that'll be fun, I think.
Yeah. All right, well, I'll skim for more questions, and then I guess we'll wrap it up because we've almost hit 3 hours. But
yeah.
So guys, ask
food.
Yeah, ask some questions. I'll answer like one or two more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. But let's see. I don't think I'm seeing any questions. I'm just seeing people talking about Breath of the Wild.
Still want to know what's
Yeah.
supposed to be the stage of
It's a
time.
rabbit hole.
It's
We need to
what?
stay away. It's a rabbit hole. We need to stay away from it. Just stay away.
Yeah, I know my chat's a little bit behind, so I'm giving it a minute, but I'm not seeing any more questions popping up. So I think why? Okay, there's a question. Why do I sound like Serene Ink? I don't know who Serene Ink is. Will there be a River Zora stream? Yeah, when I make the River Zora faction, I'll probably be or do you mean like a stream like this where we just talk about the River Zora for an hour or two?
I guess we could do a Sora stream when we get there.
Zora
That
in
could be
general. Yeah, I don't feel like I could talk about the River Zora in particular for like 2 hours, but collectively all the Zoras, I could
I
probably.
think that could be cool.
I don't know. Maybe we could do a Zora stream. We'll probably. I don't know. I feel a little burned out from doing these
Yeah.
3 parts so close together. So we probably won't do a stream for like a month, unless we
Probably.
have like something we really want to do on stream.
Yeah.
Will Sheik be in the game and Arc? Yes, Sheik is a pretty important character. Although now that I think about it, since I tossed out everything, I completely forgot how Sheik will participate in the Civil War. Whoops.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, Sheik is introduced during Labrina. Sheik is, I would say Sheik is pretty important. Especially in context to Link. So that answers that. Okay, now I'm seeing a few questions. Where are the Kokiri after Sulcaris? They are completely scattered all over Hyrule. The original plan was that Saria basically marries Rallis and they kind of become refugees in Lanayru, and then from there they scout out the Great Sea and they find a place to call home in the Great Sea, and that's where they become the Koroks. But I think now it looks like Saria is going to marry Volga, so they're probably going to be refugees in Death Mountain instead of Lanayru. I don't know. They're scattered after Sulcaris, and then eventually they are gathered by Saria, and then they go off to the Forest Haven on the island in the Great Sea, and they become Koroks. Okay, question. What would if Ganon from Nintendo canon came to Hyrule Conquest? I'm actually not sure exactly what, like, as a separate character at the same time as Ganondorf. I would never do that, I guess. I guess that's my answer to the question. Let's see. How does Link know Mido if he was banished? But there's that one scene. It's one of the visions that Lana's having. Actually, when Lana meets Mido, that's after Mido's banishment. He's still hanging out in the Kokiri Forest, and that's when he meets Link. Like, Mido didn't just like run away immediately after his banishment. He's living on the margin of the Kokiri, looking in with envy. That's when he meets Link. Let's see. Is Sheik still Zelda? Yes and no. But Link went to the Kokiri. Yes, I mean, like I said, Mido's he's still hanging out. Like, he's not in the Kokiri society. He's like living in the wild on the edge of Kokiri culture, looking in with envy. See, can you talk about Time's Menagerie and the Fallen Sage next stream? I would personally just like to forget those 2 games, honestly. I don't think they're very good. I feel like they were just kind of like they're like the training wheels on my tricycle. Oh, that's how I'm gonna feel about Hyrule Conquest in 10 years. It'll be Hyrule Conquest was the training wheels on my tricycle.
Training wheels on your bicycle.
Bicycle, yeah, that's right. Trikes. Always. You're right. Thank you for correcting me. All right. I'm not seeing any more questions, so I think that's a good place to wrap it up. I'm actually not starving like I was the last 2 times, so I probably won't eat dinner. Let's see, he's asking. I'd love to hear more of the lore behind those two masterpieces. Well, their lore has basically been integrated into Hyrule Conquest. It's kind of the same. I mean, I've obviously changed things around, but what if Link was around during the rise of Ganon? I don't know if he would be. I don't know if I can imagine that situation. He'd probably kill Ganon. See, when is the next stream going to be? No, there's no set date. It seems like the pattern is we do one of these, we get really excited, and then we do them every weekend, and then we burn out, and then we like do them every once in a while. That seems to be the repeating pattern.
Yeah.
Daniel
To be determined.
To be determined. I will say sometime in the next sometime between 2 weeks to a month. That seems to be the safest bet. Someone asked, who is the worst Zelda? Who is the worst Princess Zelda? Do you mean in all of the Nintendo games, or the worst Princess Zelda in Hyrule Conquest canon? If you mean in Hyrule Conquest, I'd probably say the third was the worst. Maybe she wasn't a very particularly good ruler. Even
I agree.
Yeah, she was kind of a reckless soldier that got herself killed. In terms of all of Nintendo, like all of the Zeldas that exist in all the Nintendo games, I want to say the one in Breath of the Wild, but it might be the one in Skyward Sword. That's really hard for me to pick. I kind of like I like and dislike different Zeldas for different reasons. Like, the reason I dislike the Princess Zelda in Skyward Sword is not really the same as the reason I dislike the Princess Zelda in Breath of the Wild. So it's kind of like me picking my poison, I guess. I'll just say it's probably a tie between not Spirit Tracks, although I don't like the one from Spirit Tracks much. It's probably a tie between the one from Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild. And then in Nephy canon, the third Princess Zelda's... I don't dislike the third Princess Zelda, but she was like the worst ruler of the 5.
Yeah.
So hopefully that answers that question. I can answer what the best Zelda in the... Well, I guess the Valiant comics aren't Nintendo canon, so never mind, that doesn't count. How would you feel if they made CDI canon? At this point, the CDI games are no more wackier than like A Link Between Worlds or Spirit Tracks, so I'd be fine with it. Like, the CDI games, there's nothing other than like the really... No, I was gonna say other than the bad art, but I would say visually a lot of the modern Zelda games look ugly as sin. Like, Spirit Tracks graphics look terrible. Skyward Sword looks fucking ugly. It's like the ugliest Zelda game ever. Like, everyone has like huge lips and Squidward noses, so I can't even say like other than the bad art in the CDI games. Like, the CDI games, there's nothing in them that's like weirder or uglier than any of the recent Zelda games, so I'd be fine if they made them canon. At least they're funny. Like, the CDI Zelda games are actually funny, so they have that going for them. Spirit Tracks Zelda is awesome. I would say the role she's trying to embody is awesome, but they do that a lot of the stupid anime weeboo shit where she like screams and does weird noises that really pisses me off, and I find irritable and I don't know, I can't stand that kind of stuff. The Spirit Tracks Zelda is basically too wacky for my taste. Yeah, I don't know. I'm getting a lot of questions, so I'm probably gonna stop answering them now. Like, questions are flooding in.
Yeah.
At least Spirit Tracks Zelda does something. Yes, she does have that going for her. She actually is mechanically useful to the player in Spirit Tracks, I guess. So that's why I wouldn't say she's like my least favorite, because at least she's useful. I just kind of hate that. Let me put it this way: there is a way that I can imagine in my head that the Spirit Tracks version of Princess Zelda could be done in a way that I like, with minimal changes. Basically, just get rid of all the Animu screaming and kawaii shit, and she's fine. Whereas, like, in Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild, you have to fundamentally, like, redo the characters from scratch. So, I guess that's all I really have to say about the Spirit Tracks version. Okay, I'll answer one more question, and then I'm gonna wrap it up. So let me pick from these. Actually, I'm not seeing any more. It's just people talking to each other. I see people talking about Virador. That's not a question though. All right. Well, we've made it almost 3 hours. I think we'll.
I think it's a good place to wrap it up.
What would the ship name for Demoko and Lear be? I would never ship them. So. Deer. I'd be deer. All right. That's where I'm gonna wrap it up. All right. I guess we still technically didn't get through the entirety of the Civil War, but I guess we'll flesh it out another time.
Yeah, I think we got to talk about a lot of interesting things actually.
Yeah.
So I'm satisfied.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't feel the need to do a part 4, at least not anytime soon. And we finally actually got to talk about Aquazoo for a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, well, that was fun, everyone. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I think I enjoyed it a little more than part 2. It was a little less chaotic, although some of the questions at the end ended up, I don't know, we ended up going up on tangents with the questions, but I guess that was okay. But anyway, we'll be back sometime in the next month or 2 or whatever. I don't know. I should be showing new Hylian stuff sometime in the next week, so I guess that's the next thing for everyone to look forward to, is the redone Hylians. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. Have fun. Bye.
Have fun. Bye.